Detroit to take on the Pistons. Tomorrow evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
And here we go.
I should have stayed home and played with myself.
What do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess, screw.
Well, let's play chess.
The Indianapolis Colts select Anthony Richardson, quarterback, Florida.
Richardson gonna take off and run. He's in there! Touchdown! I-N-D-Y! The first career touchdown!
Here's Haliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it! Hits it!
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, a lot of conversation coming at you today. Matt Painter, head coach of the Boilermakers, coming up at 5 o'clock. A variety of things from the Boilermaker head coach. Again, 5 o'clock from Matt today. We've also got Doug Boles coming in studio. Your Carb Day concert is George Thorogood and the Destroyers and the Gin Blossoms. And Doug Boles will be in studio. We will talk about that. As like any Carb Day performance, it is going to take a great deal of criticism, especially when you line it up compared to what Iowa does and utilizes the bank that they end up getting from the grocery store chain Hy-Vee. And that's where you're going to get a lot of the criticism there. But we'll talk to Doug about that and a lot more, and probably have a couple of beers here in studio coming up at 4:30. We got Brad Spielberger of PFF, where the Colts are right now, coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Is it surprising they have not addressed a need in the secondary yet, other than bringing back Kenny Moore, for example? Is it surprising they did all that other work and then compare to just how they looked at the end of the year, Nico Collins giving them the old 1-2 right there? Brad Spielberger with that and a lot more I'm sure he can add coming up here as well. And Greg Rakestraw, bottom of the hour, we'll talk about a 2-week-long window for the high school championship games, what he saw in the semi-states. And, of course, high school championships don't officially get underway until the weekend after this because of round number 1 and the second round of the NCAA tournament, which is officially underway. That is coming up on Friday. All right, a lot to get to as well. One of the things we'll get to with Matt, and I'm sure he's incredibly unhappy, and it's easy for me to say, right? Like, if one person, bends me backwards in the 6 o'clock hour, then I end up biting back. So it's easy for me to sit here and say, well, you know what? You don't even address it. Don't even mess with it. The whole take the high road routine that's often dropped on me. Yeah, sometimes I just feel like firing back, right? With the way that I am, with my behavior, with how I act towards somebody. And again, my lone rule, if you're not nice to me, I'm not going to be nice to you. But we'll ask Matt about all that is being said about his big man. Yeah, comment on that after the Saturday loss to Wisconsin in the Big Ten semifinals. We'll go a little bit more in depth with that coming up here in the 5 o'clock hour. Regarding the Pacers, this is something to where they're going to have to help themselves. And I'm talking about the players. I'm assuming if you have had a thought or a criticism as to why the Pacers have been inconsistent, and sorry, when you lose at home to a team like Cleveland last night that looks like they do, there's no sense in that. If they're at full strength, okay. But that team last night and the fashion in which you lost, that leads us to believe that that's just who this team is. There are moments when you play well and you're thinking about turning back the clock to November, early December, and then there are moments like last night, for example, in the third quarter where you're thinking, what the hell is going on? And the third quarter, which has been very kind to this team. But it does all start with Tyrese Haliburton. It always has, and it always will. He was the reason why they got off to that start. He was the reason why they advanced to the championship game, into that in-season tournament back in the early season. He was the straw that stirs, and I mean it all. Well, with the exception of defensively. Everything offensively. Everything that they built, the type of team that they were going to be, offensively starts with him. And I mean absolutely. He's got the keys to every door. He's got the keys to get other players started. He just does. And then he's also got the power, or had the power, to take over on his own. And he does not have that right now. It is a significant slump in the past month, which he is going through right now. And I know everybody's passing around this sound advice. Everybody's suggesting what's going wrong. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you're inaccurate. I'm sure it's a lot of everything. And I'm sure it's also a lot of just having the weight of everything on your shoulders. I mean, you accept it and you embrace it when things are going well. Yeah, that's me. Then you have to battle through it and fight it when things are in the toilet, like they are for him right now. I know a lot of other guys would go, hell, I'll take those numbers in a second, but that's not who he has become. That's not who he's supposed to be. And that's where it all starts, because his game and success translates to the success of Siakam, which translates to the success of Turner, which translates to the success of Neesmith, which makes Nembhard better. And there are some things that you can't help any longer that, frankly, you sit there right now, you can do nothing about. And the Buddy Hield, we knew that was going to be major regardless of his shooting. I talked about that ad nauseum. But it's kind of a waste of breath right now to talk about it because he's gone and isn't coming back. But you knew that was going to be a loss that was significant. It was more than just being the Haliburton buddy. No pun intended. It was being a contributor that others had to recognize. And when you lose that, I'm sorry, when you lose a significant, had to be responsible for offensive weapon, that makes it easier for any defense. I don't care who it is. It just does. And then trying to make up for it with Doug McDermott, we all know how that's gone so far. So this team in one night, like on a Saturday night, will make you talk good about it and a win over Brooklyn. And then on a night like last night, you get off to a great start. You get out to a 15-point lead, and you wonder what the hell happened. And it all starts with Tyrese Haliburton. That's where it starts. They'll get back on a more consistent track when he does. And at no time before. You can't make up for that. Again, he has the keys to everything. And you will not be able to make up for it. As much as I talk about Miles Turner, I certainly realize why Miles Turner is more valuable right now to this team. It's because of Haliburton. And you can always tell. You can tell when they start games. You can tell the ball sticks more now. And I know everybody has pointed the finger at Pascal Siakam, and there's probably a shred of truth to that as well. But it doesn't move because it doesn't move from the hands of Tyrese Haliburton, the looks of Tyrese Haliburton. And you can tell, and whether or not it's an injury, again, I'll accept any criticism or any excuse or any reason right now, because I think you're all right. Do I think he's dealing still with an injury? Yes. Do I think he's fatigued because of all he has gone through this year, including the All-Star weekend? Yes. But you know what? When you're the guy on the team and you're a star, when people put you in that elite level category, they expect you to do what? They expect you to get over it, and if you don't get over it, you're going to be criticized. That's part of being a star. Now, the criticism may not last as long as it might. I can flat tell you this. I mean, if Miles Turner goes through stuff like that, then, you're still talking about him right now if he has a bad game. So it is different. But what is not different is if he does not perform at a high level, this team is in trouble. I wish it were different, but it's absolutely not right now. And this team has given you a lot of reasons to be celebratory this year and to have a good time with it this year. But when you're up and down and we're going into the stretch run of the regular season, and when you need to put together some wins that will keep you out of a play-in, that can, ascend you to a spot where you want to be in, because that opportunity is there. They are good enough, again, if they play at a level in which we saw earlier. And I also know this, and this is true. Defenses will catch up with you. Scouting, that advanced scouting will catch up with you with a defense. But again, if you're a superstar player on a really good team, you overcome that. If you're not, if you're phony and things aren't working and you can't find a way to work them out, and that's who you are, then that's why you lose. There's no reason to lose that game last night. None. But you can tell at the beginning of games, can't you, when the ball movement isn't there? And early in the season, and really even games here and there lately, it's not last night, but when they're at their best, that ball is moving around. You're high ball screen action. Somebody's going to the goal, whether it's Siakam or Turner, and the ball's going to be there, or if it's not, it's going to open up. The thing that really got to me last night, and see if anybody else agrees with me on it, was just how often Tyrese Haliburton tried to get himself open off the dribble and had nothing. He couldn't find a seam. Thus ended up taking double pump three-pointers or, floating fallaways going out of bounds. Or really, even when he got to the rim or was getting to the glass, had it rejected. And I know it's Jared Allen in there, so that's different. But it starts with him until they find out what exactly is going on with him. And listen, he's not running away from it. He's going to own it. He owned it after the game. And he's right. He says, everybody thinks they have the answers. We all think they have the answers, but only one person has that answer, and that's him. That is him. And that just comes with the territory. Yeah, there's no crying or whining about it, because when you get mentioned in that upper echelon of NBA players, because that's where you strive to be, then you've got to accept that. And they're going to come at you every single night, and you're going to have to play through pain and dings. It's just the way that it is this time of year, especially in the NBA, but it certainly is the way that it is when you are the elite player, when you are the superstar of your team. It is going to be different. That's what he wanted. That's what he got. And that's now what he's going to have to deal with. So I know Rick Carlisle this morning, and he's right. I said this last week about the whole learning experience stuff. There's only one thing that needs to be learned here, and that is for the star player to become the star player again. And if you're not, you're screwed. I'm not going to compare the two teams because they're drastically different. And, obviously there was a much more pronounced fall off in the case of Manning being here. But we always knew if you took Manning away or out of the equation that you were screwed. That's always made fun of the backup quarterback. Like right now it's valued. You got to bring Flacco in here because what if? And I understand that. But back then it didn't really matter because expectations were not going to be reached if your guy wasn't playing. Now, it's not that cut and dry with this team, but in basketball terms, it's pretty damn close. If he's not going to play to the level in which, or produce, it's not like he's not trying. I know that he's trying. When I say if he's not going to play, that doesn't sound good. But if he's not going to produce to the level in which is necessary and you have become accustomed to seeing here with this team during these successful moments, then they're going to have nothing. you may squeak by here or there, but the other part about this is late game situations. Yikes. See the final 4 minutes of that game last night? What did they have? 2 makes? I think Miles was one in front of the rim, and then Haliburton got one too. They got the worst looks of all time. And this is not like 1995 New York Knicks lock-em-up defense. That's some dude running out there named Merrill. And again, if you don't reach 110, you're not going to win. So you look at it defensively, all right, so you're not getting the stops, but offensively, are they having to catch you? And that's the difference. This team has had to be, when they've been ultra successful, a team that's had to be caught. You've had to catch them. Yeah, in this case, this team is not going to be one that's going to track anybody down. It just won't. Because that means that you have not been offensively superior to that point in the game. You have to close, meaning you have to hold off those that are trying to get at you. I just don't see often late game situations this team going to be good enough on the defensive end to ultimately track anybody down. So it starts with Tyrese Haliburton, and I'm not mad at Tyrese Haliburton. I'm not angry at all, but everybody just wants to put out their question. And as I mentioned, all of these questions are understood and valid. But really and truly, it comes down to one thing, and it comes down to Tyrese Haliburton. I know it. He certainly knows it if you listen to the presser last night. And without that level of play that put him in the upper echelon earlier this season in the NBA, without that, this team is in deep you-know-what. Even if you win a game against Brooklyn on Saturday. Because you cannot be this on and off down the stretch to survive. And the first way out of this right now is coming from your superstar, and that's Tyrese Haliburton. We'll discuss that over the course of the afternoon, I promise you. At 239-1070, this email address is jmv1075thefan.com. Inside the lounge via YouTube Live, a lot of reaction, a lot of response to Brian Evans on the show yesterday. If you missed that podcast, 1075thefan.com. I know there were some people that said, hey, where is he coached? Why is he able to say this? You know, who is he? Well, he's a guy that embodies what most IU fans, certainly the older and those that remember what he was value-wise to this team, they do value his opinion. That's why. It doesn't matter if you coached or not. I mean, hell, he went through it. He knows what he's looking for here. And he knows what he's not getting here. The other aspect of it is, I think some people took away from it yesterday that he wants to relive the night era. He just wants to bring back basketball that matters. And a form of basketball that he was a part of. It doesn't have to be coached by the late Bob Knight or any late Bob Knight protege. It just has to be coached and coached the way that it should be coached, and then coached the way and played the way that everybody around here expects. And it hasn't been it. So a guy like Brian Evans is going to have sharp commentary. And believe me, he's earned it. He's earned it. He's been through it. He's played hurt for you. He played in a shoulder harness. And he has absolutely every damn right to be upset and say everything that he said yesterday. Whether or not you like it, the truth may hurt, but it was absolutely the truth. And we'll see where they go from here. Did I see that a little bit earlier? We got 3 Hoosiers in the transfer portal. Better look that up, James. Again, none of this stuff surprises me. There's like a zillion dudes in the transfer portal right now. If you missed Brian Evans on the show yesterday, that podcast on 1075thefan.com, it was really good IU basketball content, and in fact, probably a lot of things that people need to hear, and especially those that had been unaccepting of that sort of angle or opinion to this point. And hopefully now you realize it's not just about getting somebody that is the mirror image of Bob Knight. It's about getting somebody that directs basketball in a fashion in which people expect. And this, just simply put, hasn't been it. And the prior regime, again, simply put, wasn't it. And they continue to search. Got Butler later on tonight against Minnesota. That's the first round of the NIT. Remember, the NIT championships end up getting played at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Indiana State tomorrow night versus SMU. The Indiana State players have said they are going to be as motivated as they would if they were in the NCAA tournament, and I sure as hell hope so. Here's why. And this is just from the selfish category that I'll bring up. This is for me. Like, this is me being selfish. Because if they go out like that in game number 1 against SMU, it is going to be easy for the world, who have certainly not forgotten about everybody bringing up Indiana State and how they deserve to be in the tournament. That is a bad look right there. You talk about a must-win tomorrow night for them against SMU. Seriously. I know it's the NIT, but I mean, I hand out must-wins all the time. It's also a must-win for me, because you guys are going to clown all over me if they go out there and lay an egg. Go out there tomorrow night and produce a dud. And then coach goes to St. Louis, a couple players go someplace else, and you're back to square stinking one. So, yes, it's a must-win. Seriously, that's what happens to these bubble teams, especially if these bubble teams accept a bid to the NIT. And if you're talking about one, like Indiana State, that had been widely discussed as being screwed or hosed, the one thing everybody anti is looking for is that dud of a first game after you were left out of the tournament. And Indiana State cannot give the folks out there that ammunition. And believe me, I have been a staunch supporter forever of this program, and especially of this year. I don't want to be clowned up coming up on Thursday, so don't do it. Go out there tomorrow night and play like you mean it. Or at least play like you say that you mean, because otherwise is unacceptable. So we go back how many years to the episode of The Opposite? It's George Costanza, episode of Seinfeld, The Opposite. George is sick and tired of crap happening to him, right? Sick and tired of the way things that are going. So he decided to form an opinion that he normally would go with, using his brain power, using his decision-making, and does a 180 on it, flips the script, goes the complete opposite, and things start working. Somebody brought up a great point when I retweeted a piece of that episode a little bit earlier that celebrated its anniversary. Why should Chris Ballard not try that? And it doesn't have to be a complete 180, but I thought that was a good point. I don't know if Chris has ever seen an episode of Seinfeld. I don't know if he's seen that episode of Seinfeld, and maybe it will all work out great. But certainly, going down this particular path, we have seen how it's worked out before. So why not at least a little bit of the opposite? A little bit? Well, that was a good discussion point to start. We'll do that coming up a little bit later on, too. All right, 4 o'clock hour. Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus. Doug Boles is going to be in studio. I'm sure you guys are ready to sling some arrows regarding George Thuoy. I've always said this. I could get up there and make fart sounds, and everybody's going to be out there drinking and drunk and think that I sound like Pearl Jam. Hey, wait a minute. That guy up there making fart sounds, is he doing even flow? Hold on. You guys aren't going to know what the hell's happening. I understand that. But when you get matched up with what Iowa is doing, people are going to have questions. And I can give you an answer right now that Doug's going to sit here at 4:30, and Doug's doing to the best of his ability. He understands the value of Carb Day as we know it and love it. I just don't think those higher up, those or he, have a similar respect of Carb Day as we do. Thus, you can find in that employer-employee relationship, we've all been down this path before, your hands tied. Just saying. We're going to drink some beers in here coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Doug Boles in the studio. You will not want to miss Matt Painter, who joins the show coming up at 5 o'clock today. Again, the head coach of the Boilermakers. Kenny Chesney tickets also on the way. We'll take a break, and Greg Rakestraw on a busy high school and collegiate weekend. That and more with Greg coming up on the other side. The stream, the app, it's HD Radio, the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. I'll log on and get in just a second. And a Tuesday on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Listen to Query and Company Monday.
With JMV.
Attention, whoever you are, this channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
Lady, do I sound like I'm ordering a pizza?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, shout out 69th birthday to the legend, the retired actor Bruce Willis, whose legendary portrayal of John McClane in Die Hard will go down in history as one of the top 5 films of all time, according to me. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And you think about it, too. He started in Moonlighting, had a stint, I believe, not 1 but 2 films as the voice of a baby. And Look Who's Talking. Did you ever see that, James? Look Who's Talking. The voice of a baby. Bruce Willis, 69 years of age today. The legend, John McClane. Everybody celebrate with me. Matt Painter in the 5 o'clock hour. Spielberger, Doug Boles, 4 o'clock hour. Chesney tickets coming up on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Friend of the show, assuming had a big weekend. Semi-state this and semi-state that, and now waiting a week before the finals in the boys' high school basketball season, and that is put to bed. Greg Rakestraw is with us. How you doing, Greg?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
Are you on the road today?
I am in my car, but I am pulled off to the side. I just got done with an hour-long Zoom meeting, because you might be wondering, well, what am I going to do with not having high school basketball this Saturday? Well, the Indy 11 have their season opener on Saturday night in terms of home opener against Sacramento. So I get to begin year number 11 of that Saturday night. But then in the morning and afternoon, I'm going to be in Milan as the master of ceremonies for the 70th anniversary celebration of the Milan Miracle. So our final planning meeting ended at 3:30, just so I could do this here radio show with you.
Oh, that's outstanding right there. Well, that should be fun. Where's the go-to place in Milan, old school-wise, to eat? Where's the
reservation is the place to go in Milan, right at the intersection of, is it 101 and maybe State Road 48? Maybe it's 350. I don't know. I could drive you straight there, but it literally is within line of sight of Milan High School, which is on the north edge of town in Milan.
I believe that is Ripley County, correct?
That is absolutely Ripley County, yes, sir. One of 4 current high schools in Ripley County.
Okay, so hold on a second. You got Milan and you got South Ripley.
Yep.
Jacksonville?
There you go. 3. You got one more. I think the biggest one.
Is this one tough?
No, it's not tough at all. This town serves as the gateway to Cincinnati.
St. Leo, East Central.
There are roses and a skyline there greeting you when you get there.
East Central.
No, it's actually East Central does have a township that is in Ripley County, but East Central is in Dearborn County.
Okay, I got you. All right, what high school am I missing in Ripley?
Batesville.
No, Batesville. Oh, man. Not have known. I knew a dude I went to Vincennes with as a freshman that was on WROK, that was heard all across campus on cable. Party Mike Burdett. He was a classic. Party Mike Burdett. He was a dude. Good dude.
Well, I would assume he's related to, or he goes by a nickname now. I know a Kaz Burdett. How about that?
I know. He was from Sunman, Indiana.
Uh-huh.
So
kids at Sunman go to East Central, and Sunman is in Ripley County, but Sunman is technically part of Sunman Dearborn Schools, which is East Central High School.
Well, have fun with that. That sounds outstanding. You also had a great weekend. The semi-states, I thought, were absolutely classic the way you want them to be.
Absolutely. And credit to Jeffersonville, because not many people gave them a chance of beating Lawrence North, and they did.
Yep.
And they were about a minute or so away from beating Ben Davis and making it to the state finals for the first time in 29 years. BD could not have played better than they did against Center Grove in the morning game, and could not find that same magic until the last 2 minutes against Jeffersonville. KJ Wyndham, a steal, fouled, gets 1 of 2 free throws. Mark Zachary has been tremendous the entire postseason run. He is working on his second state championship in as many sports this year and his third over the course of the last 53 weeks. He was amazing in both the regional and first semi-state game. Wasn't as good until late when he had to be, in the second semi-state game. So that was mine, and you had stories that were kind of replicated amongst that at 7 different sites across the state. So I know we've had the week break because of the NCAA first and second rounds, but it'll be worth your time to check back in on high school basketball next Saturday.
Greg, you mentioned the Zachary kid, and you can go down a lengthy list, a scroll of great athletic names and feats over the years at Ben Davis, but it kind of seems like multi-sport-wise, is he near the top of the list for what he has accomplished while being there? That's pretty amazing.
Sure. And again, DeJuan Jones, obviously, now plays in the National Football League. Really was a basketball kid first and was kind of secondary to football. The simple statement I tried out about Mark is the fact of Ben Davis is the second largest school in the state. And this kid got playing time as a football and a basketball player as a freshman at Ben Davis High School. He was so good as a defensive player last year as a sophomore. He came in as an injury replacement for KJ Wyndham, who's going to play at Northwestern next year. And KJ was the sixth man after Mark got into the lineup because KJ was out for 2 or 3 weeks, and the pieces just kind of seemingly fit with Mark spending less time on the ball and just being kind of the guy that is the shutdown defender as he is as a cornerback in football. And so there have been other great 2-sport kids at Ben Davis over the course of the years. There have been very recent 2-sport athletes. David Bell immediately comes to mind at Warren Central. Darius Latham at North Central before that. And 2 guys have gone to play in the National Football League. And I think that's the path that Mark Zachary will follow at some point in time in the not-too-distant future.
Greg, could we have asked for a better matchup in 4A than Fishers and Ben Davis? That's kind of what everybody wants, right?
Well, a lot of folks are thinking Fishers and Lawrence North, and the folks from LN would have loved to have had that. Fishers beat both of them. It's rather remarkable to think that the first game of the season was Ben Davis and Fishers, and the last game of the season is going to be Ben Davis and Fishers. Now, again, when Ben Davis played Fishers back on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, Mark Zachary was not playing. He was still playing football. Ben Davis elected to keep that game on the schedule. They had Fishers on the 21st, Zionsville the 25th, Southport the 29th, Pike the 1st, and Fort Wayne the 2nd. Ben Davis played the Fishers game. They moved the Zionsville game because it was opposite their state championship game. They played the Southport game. They moved the Pike game because it was a conference game, and then they kept the game against Fort Wayne, and that was the first game that Mark played because he literally practiced Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then made his season debut on Saturday, and Ben Davis won that game as well. What Ben Davis has done in terms of replacing 7 of their top 10 from last year that were seniors, and most of those kids played college basketball this past year, is rather remarkable. It is somewhat reminiscent of their dominant team in 95 that nobody expected much out of in 96, and they're in the state championship game and they win it in beating New Albany in double overtime. But Fishers deserves a lot of attention as well because, again, Fishers lost their top player after last season, Jalen Harrelson, now playing at LaPorte La Lumiere. Fishers plays not 1 but 2 freshman guards. They start one in Cooper Zachary, and Jason Gardner Jr. is the first guy off the bench on that group. And frankly, this group is a lot like kind of Ben Davis last year, and that in terms of the upperclassmen, there's a Division I kid or 2 on that group, but primarily they're just kids that really fit together and really play well. And their head coach, Garrett Weininger, he's a star as a high school coach now, and I think that reputation is going to grow. He's 31 years of age, John. He played in the state championship game at Rochester. He was an assistant coach in a state championship game at Warren Central, and now he is a head coach in a state championship game in his 5th year as a head coach.
So Greg Rakester on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. 3A, South Bend, St. Joe, Scottsburg. Scottsburg certainly having a fantastic year to get to the finals. I kind of wondered this about South Bend, St. Joe. In that semifinal, they put up 88. It was kind of a track meet against Purdue. And then in the final, the semi-state, it was a 44-41 3-overtime game. So was there some ball holding going on in that final there that I'm unaware of?
There were some elongated possessions. Delta realized we can't run with these guys. And again, it's a South Bend St. Joe team that's got some significant talent on it. One of those would be Micah Shrewsbury's younger son that is a sophomore on that team. Another is Chase Knesny, whose older brother plays at Notre Dame currently. And then really their top player, the Lee kid, is going to play baseball at Notre Dame, which is interesting to consider the fact of, think about Center Grove football and their great receiver, the Coy kid, that's also going to play baseball at Notre Dame. So these are kids that are really good in other sports, but baseball is going to be their track, kind of going forward. South Bend St. Joe can kind of play whatever style you want to. They've got good skill, good length, but it's also a Scottsburg team that has a great amount of length. And they really have adopted this 1-3-1 defense this year because they have a ridiculous amount of size. But I don't think Scottsburg's afraid to kind of, get up and down the floor with South Bend St. Joe. So I get the feeling for that 3A game that for South Bend St. Joe fans, that's going to look a lot more like the first game at Logansport and not so much like the second game, the more of a slower game they played against Delta in that championship.
Yeah, 2A, Wapahani, Brownstown Central, and in Class A, Fort Wayne, Canterbury, and Bethesda Christian will be those matchups coming up a weekend after this forthcoming. All right, so you got 3 IU players now going into the transfer portal. We knew this, Peyton Sparks, CJ Gunn, and Caleb Banks. How many do you think will Hoosiers have to pick out of the transfer portal to try to make a run at this thing in the offseason? What's the number?
Well, you're probably looking at least, I would say, 6 or 7, since you have got 0 incoming recruits now with no Liam McNeely. But to be blunt, given kind of where the program is, you need guys that know what they're doing and can play immediately. And so big picture, which is short term, that may not be the worst thing in the world. And let's be honest, we can certainly single out IU for the things they have been getting wrong as a program, but I'm not sure that their story is all that different from many places. That's probably going to be the way of the world. You're going to have a 7 or 8 man rotation most places. 1 or 2 of those guys will graduate. Most of the rest of those guys, that are getting playing time and or getting well paid will stick around. And those that aren't getting playing time will look for a place where they can go get more. So the predicament that Indiana is in, I'm not so sure that's all that different from most other major college campuses from a men's basketball standpoint right now.
All right, give me your breakdown quickly of this NCAA tournament. Who do you like to make it to Glendale, Arizona?
I am so hoping it's Purdue, just because I want to see Matt Painter be successful. I want to see those guys on that team be successful. I want that fan base to be able to enjoy it. I think I have got them at least getting to the Final Four in most of my brackets. I do think that largely their region, there's no region that's easy, but I do kind of like the path that I think that Purdue has to try to reverse some history and get something done. If it's Purdue and UConn in the championship game, you get 2 of the powerhouses. I think gone are the days of chalk where it's 4 number 1s, there's too much parity. But if there's going to be a number 1 that makes it this year, I think Purdue can be one of them.
Hey, Greg, the Colts made a signing today. You ready?
And that would be?
Taven Bryan, defensive tackle. And I don't know if that means he's going to move to the cornerback room or not. Maybe.
I'm glad that my extensive notes on Taven from the preseason will not go to waste. I can keep those in for the preparation coming up this August.
That, according to Mike Chappell, Taven Bryan is back. So now they have, what is that, 15, 20, 25 defensive tackles they got now? How many?
You can never have too many defensive tackles, John.
That's what they say. That's what I don't know if they're winning when they say it, but that's what they say, Greg. What do you got coming up this weekend? What else you got coming up? And when we talk again, some of the more interesting things we want to go over next week. What do you got?
All right, so this is rubber chicken circuit for me this week. So tomorrow night is the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame banquet at Primo. That is actually sold out in large part because Pete Smith is going in, so he has bought all the tables. We will stream that at iscsportsnetwork.com, our Twitter, our YouTube, etc. if you want to watch that tomorrow night. Then again, the Milan reunion, the Milan celebration, benefiting the Milan 54 Museum. You can RSVP, milan54.org. It is a free event. Just trying to get a head count. And we think there's going to be well over 1,000 people there at that event, if not more. milan54.org. And then put your winter coat on and come hang with me at Carroll Stadium as season 11 of home soccer for the Indy 11 kicks off Saturday night, 7 o'clock, ESPN Plus, and a local television station of which I'm not exactly sure yet, but we'll be on one of them at some point in time by 7 o'clock coming up on Saturday.
And then sometime soon it'll be Eastern Green 85, the season in which I passed a kidney stone at halftime of a game against Shakamak and scored 11 in the second half. That's 11 points after passing a kidney stone. I'm quite sure nobody's ever done that. That's a feat.
That's far better than, me breaking my collarbone in a JV game in 90 at Crawford County. You win this round, JMV.
My brother, I appreciate you. Have a great weekend.
All right, talk to you on the takeover, if not before.
You got that right. Greg Rakestraw on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Matt Painter, Brad Spielberger, Doug Boles still to come. Chesney tickets to AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Business.
Ride with JMV.
Well, we're waiting.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Three IU players reportedly into the transfer portal, one being C.J. Gunn, Caleb Banks, and Peyton Sparks. Hey, listen, you want to upgrade and go play for a school, a team with a tradition, as we have seen in the past at IU, I understand. But, man, don't you look back at your time at Ball State and wonder, man, I'd love to have that one back. And that's what happens. It's your decision now, and so many people wanted it, and it's what's funny about it. So many people wanted the opportunity year after year to basically have this college basketball free agency. So many wanted it, and now nationally they all piss and moan about covering it. It's great. It is just great. So that is one kid where you wonder, man, you don't know what you got till it's gone. Well, the grass isn't always greener. Yeah, any of that crap. It's one guy that I think about. We talked to Michael Lewis about the transfer portal last year, and he didn't, at the time, I mean, obviously he was, dealing with that at that particular moment, but that seemed like one decision where you'd been better off staying where you were and having a high level of success. Quick break, we'll come back. Doug Boles in studio, bottom of the hour, so it's George Thorogood and the Gin Blossoms for Carb Day. We'll drink some beers and talk that over. Matt Painter coming up, the head coach of the Boilermakers after 5. And Brad Spielberger, the path of the Colts and the offseason. What does the PFF guy think? We'll talk to him next.
Hey, guys, it's Andy Sweeney for Universal.
WABC HD3, W228CX, Indianapolis.
The Ride with JMV.
Bill, I just have one question for you. What color is an orange? Ted, you bonehead. Its color is the same as its name, just like a lemon.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
So, this is the latest from the transfer portal. Alabama has landed, according to Jeff Goodman, Pepperdine transfer, or a Pepperdine transfer, I should say. His name is Houston Mallet, or if I'm from Southern Indiana, Mallet. At any rate, what's interesting about that is Alabama's still playing right now. I'm telling you, this is all so stupid. You guys all know this is stupid, right? And it doesn't mean that I'm 54 and an old crusty fart or anything like that. This is just stupid. They're still playing. They're still playing, and they're going to add somebody for next year. Well, they're still playing. That's just beautiful. It's a beaut, Clark. It really is. College athletics. You have to admit, is anybody having fun? You guys having fun? We'll answer that question coming up in a smidge, I promise. Matt Painter, head coach of the Boilermakers, a 1 seed of the Midwest. They start out 7:25 on Friday at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Matt, coming up at 5 o'clock. Speedway press, Doug Boles in studio. The Carb Day announcement. We're going to drink some beers, and he's probably staying away from his social media account X right now, I would imagine. We shall see when Doug's in studio, bottom of the hour. Hey, by the way, tomorrow, Back 9. Back 9 should be a blast tomorrow. I want to see everybody out there. Back 9 tomorrow and Winner's Circle on Thursday. Now, evidently, there is not anything going on Friday. So if you're downtown and you want me to come to your place, just let me know. I want to be out there with Boilermaker fans and throw them back on Friday afternoon. So somewhere downtown near the field house, if you want me, if you need me, you can have me. Now, I don't know if it's as easy as all that, but, man, I'd love to go on a Friday. I don't want to be missing out. Let me know. Seriously, I want to throw back a bunch on Friday, get a little bit loose before that game, don't you guys? So Friday, let me know. Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline from Pro Football Focus. He's our weekly guest to tell us exactly what's going on, especially this offseason, a week deep now in free agency. Brad Spielberger joins us. Hello, Brad.
Hey, how we doing?
What do you think about the Colts' path so far? Because I explained it this way. You know Seinfeld, right?
Of course.
Okay, the episode The Opposite, right, with George?
Yeah.
The anniversary of The Opposite episode is today. And I wish, maybe not all in Costanza opposite, but I wish that we would see a little bit of a change of pace toward opposite with Chris Ballard. And clearly, he's not doing that in free agency to this point. Do you believe in what he's doing?
Yeah, I mean, he is still kind of sticking with his normal precedent, which is extending in-house players. You know, I think he gave some pretty strong contracts to a lot of his players. Obviously, the Pittman deal ended up right around what you and I talked about all year long, but a good deal for Grover Stewart, very good deal for Kenny Moore, who I know is an important piece of that culture and everything. But nonetheless, you know, resetting the nickel corner market at 30 is quite an achievement. I do, from what I've heard, know they've been in on more conversations that are maybe less Ballard-like, you know, than in years past. And I think that there's maybe some still trepidation of, like, let's just make sure we know what we have with Anthony Richardson. I'm sure they see him every day in the building. They know who he is as a person, his character, his makeup, and his talent and ability. But I think the Danielle Hunter-type moves, let's use that as an example, like that comes when you see C.J. Stroud do what C.J. Stroud did, right? You say, okay, we have a window now with a cheap rookie contract quarterback that we know is a good starter. We're going to get aggressive because Nick Caserio had never given out a big free agent contract really at all in Houston either until this point. So I do think Ballard, if things go well this year, he will start to really make bigger splashes outside the building, bring in other players. I know it's not the most exciting answer in the world, but like I said, I do know they've been in on more players. They just haven't, you know, arrived at the same number as some other teams.
Caserio last year, and we talked about this, Brad, went like mid-level free agency type of guys. They all came with a history of production, right? And they all came with name recognition. And I'll be honest with you, I thought he took chances on that, and it worked. I know that he took major chances in the draft, and it worked. I love what they're doing right now in Houston.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good. I do think that everything becomes very rosy and looks great when you hit on the quarterback and you obviously hit on the edge rusher. But there's a team that also used a top 15 pick on Kenyon Green, the guard, who basically has not played and was considered a massive reach when they made the pick in the first place. Like, there's been some ugly in there too. But the free agency, that's been his MO, and I do agree. A lot of those 1-2 year deals, your Dalton Schultzes, your Sheldon Rankins, Steven Nelson at corner last year, they have had a lot of hits in those markets. And I do think maybe we could have seen some more of that at least. Like, all right, we're going to spend the big money on our internal players, but we're going to take some of those short-term, high floor veterans like we just talked about.
Do you find it kind of odd, and Brad Spielberger of PFF joins us, that last time we watched the Colts, their secondary was absolutely getting devoured by Nico Collins, and you bring back to this point Kenny Moore. It looks like you're going to end up losing Julian Blackman, but there's not been, and I know that they utilized the draft last year, and obviously we're going to go young and move forward. Are you surprised they haven't addressed the need, especially at corner to this point?
Yeah, I am. And I do think that is the position that unfortunately had probably the least talent of any in free agency, where you either were signing 28, 29, 30-year-old guys at outside corner, many of which either have injuries or were coming off injuries, like a Chidobe Awuzie staying in the division, going to Tennessee. 3 years, $36 million for a guy who tore his ACL about 18 months ago. Like, that's a gamble from Tennessee. So it was either that market or the young guys were like a Sean Murphy Bunting, who's basically a one-year starter and got a 3-year, $25.5 million deal from Arizona. To me, was one of the bigger overpays of the entire offseason. I think it's because he was basically the only starting caliber outside corner that wasn't in the late 20s, early 30s. So that was the unfortunate issue, is that the players that were available at that clear, dire need, it was, like I said, probably the least talented top-to-bottom free agent group we had.
So Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus, he's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So is there anybody that stands out, besides what you just mentioned at corner? I think that's obvious to a lot of people around here, kind of wondering, what ultimately they're going to do. Are they going to utilize that with maybe 15 of the draft, with corner being more of a premium than wide receiver there, maybe not going with Bowers, if he's available at 15, the tight end from Georgia. But is there somebody out there that you thought would be a great fit for this Colts team that they didn't go get? Now, there have also been rumors, the Hunter rumors, Snead rumors that have been out there. But does anybody ring a bell for you that you thought, that would be a nice fit at Indy, but it didn't happen?
Yeah, I do think, like you said, I've seen a L'Jarius Sneed stuff. Obviously, you couldn't not see it in the back and forth there. I personally didn't hear anything about it. But, you had Diana Rossini, the Athletic, say that they at least checked in on that, and he is one of the best corners in this game. And, look, still time. Maybe something does materialize there. It does seem like now they've pivoted to just keeping all of their internal players. There are a couple guys still left. Like I said, there's no one that I think they missed out on. There are some solid, cover three corners. Akella Witherspoon is a capable player. Was with the Rams last year, played a ton of zone. He's a solid piece. And there's kind of like the highly drafted but haven't really panned out type guys, like a Christian Fulton in Tennessee. I know he's taking a visit somewhere this week. So there's still some names, but not really at that spot. And I will say, at 15 overall, I'm going to write probably 10 mock drafts for the next month, and every single one is going to have Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo going to the Colts at 15th overall. So it's my favorite fit in the entire first round.
Well, and let's discuss that for a minute too, Brad, because I mentioned that position, especially there at 15, is a premium, certainly more than wide receiver, because by all accounts, it is supposed to be really deep. Is that the play right there for you again now and then up until the draft?
Yeah, so not only just because I love the fit, a elite zone corner that can click and close and come forward and make plays, good ball skills, great athlete. He also, at the Senior Bowl, played a bunch of press coverage and was good there too. He's a surefire top 20 pick, but also I think you nailed it on the head, where the corner you're getting in the second round is not going to stack up to the receiver you're getting in the second round if, we say they go those two positions 1-2. I like the corner class. There's some solid pieces, no question about it, but it's just, the receiver class is truly insane, and there's going to be starting caliber guys going in the 4th, 5th round of this draft. So I see it the same way. Take one of those premier, top 3 corners off the board, and then, you're taking the receiver 15 in the second round, but that guy is still a really, really talented player.
So Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So tell me who you think really has cashed in handing out cash in free agency so far.
In terms of teams that have given out a lot of cash?
Exactly. Give me some team names and why you like the work they put in so far.
Yeah, so, I do think I appreciate Minnesota finally turning the page. They made the tough decision. Are we going to give Kirk Cousins a third contract here, another Band-Aid extension to kind of chase, a wild card or maybe win the division but lose in the first round? Or are we going to finally pivot, get way younger, and just build for the future? So, obviously, not only Kirk Cousins, they also lose Danielle Hunter, who I mentioned, but they signed Jonathan Grenard, another AFC South guy, who I think is an ascending, good young player, long arm, good against the run, but also was an improved as a pass rusher last year. His arsenal of moves really took off last season. You saw his hand usage and everything got better and better over time. So, love that move. You bring in Andrew Van Ginkel, who's another great edge rusher, stepped up for the Dolphins last year when they had a bunch of injuries at edge rusher. He used to play for Brian Flores, the D coordinator in Minnesota. Blake Cashman, the linebacker, another Houston guy from last season who really played well, good in coverage, a great blitzer at the off-ball linebacker spot. So I just like what Minnesota did. They're cheaper now. They're bottom 5 in the NFL right now in cash spending for 2024. They're going to trade up and go get their quarterback, and they have 2 good tackles, 2 great receivers, a great tight end. They are ready to drop a rookie quarterback in and try to win during his rookie contract window.
All right, Brad, the work they did in Nashville with the Titans here, and I guess we'll circle Calvin Ridley as the big piece that they added. Do you like the work that they did at Tennessee, at least so far?
So from a football standpoint, I do appreciate that they said, look, Will Levis had probably the worst offensive line in the NFL last year and probably a bottom 5 arsenal of pass catchers in the NFL last year, and it's unfair for us to try to get growth and development from our early draft ticket quarterback when he has the worst supporting cast maybe in the entire NFL. So from that standpoint, I love that they just said, let's be aggressive. Lloyd Cushenberry at center, I think, was by far the best center available. I also thought he was going to sign a 4-year, $50 million contract. He signed a 4-year, $50 million contract, so I love that. The Calvin Ridley deal is kind of crazy. Like, this guy's going to turn 30 during this upcoming season. He's a good player, no question about it. He was certainly the best wide receiver available, but 4 years, $92 million, with effectively $50 million fully guaranteed for a guy that's going to turn 30. There's a ton of downside risk in that contract.
We know your thoughts already on Houston. What about Jacksonville, also on the South?
Yeah, they may have had my least favorite free agency period across the NFL. Certainly one of them. I like some of the moves they made. Getting Mitch Morse at center, I think, was a slam dunk. A good, high-floor veteran, phenomenal pass blocker. They drafted Luke Fortner a couple years ago. It wasn't working, so they moved on. I like that move. But pretty much everything else I didn't really like. Gabriel Davis, to me, is just – he's not a number 2 receiver, and they gave him number 2, maybe fringe 2, number 3 money at this point. But just, I don't know, he's a good winner downfield, but I don't love him at the intermediate level. His breaks out of his routes are kind of sloppy and not sure-footed. He just, to me, is kind of a one-dimensional player. So didn't love that one. And a couple other moves they made, they gave, Darnell Savage, the safety from Green Bay, rangy ball hawk, former first-round pick, one of the worst run-defending safeties, I think, maybe in the entire NFL. It sounds like he's going to play some nickel corner for them, which maybe works out. But they spent a lot, and I don't think they got better. They frankly may have gotten worse.
Pittsburgh, what do you think about their quarterback situation now?
It's fascinating. I love the aggressiveness and taking your swing. I mean, at a high level, you're spending less than $5 million and then a 6th-round pick for 2 guys that still can start in this league. Russell Wilson on a veteran minimum. He's not the Russell Wilson of 2015, but he was solid last year. He can still play. And then Justin Fields, if you're Pittsburgh sitting there at 20th overall, you're not going to get one of the top 4 quarterbacks. I'm not the biggest Bo Nix or Michael Penix fan in the world. So I don't think they really had that at their disposal. So they got the highest upside player at the position in Justin Fields for very, very cheap. So they're kind of fascinating. They trade Deontay Johnson away, who's a very good receiver. So now it's George Pickens and basically nobody else at receiver. Arthur Smith also runs this under center play action, attack the middle of the field offense. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields have never done either of those things. So it's kind of oil and watery, but But I respect what they did at quarterback. Kenny Pickett was not the guy, and I think it's fun to see what they're going to do next season.
All right, so a lot of what you started saying about Pittsburgh and their quarterback situation, I get a little deja vu here because I swear to you that's exactly what we said for about 3 years regarding the Colts quarterback situation, right? I mean, a little deja vu. Yeah, you know what's going to work, and this guy can play still, and we saw what happened. So maybe that'll be different.
It's tough. That's why it cost them less than $5 million to do.
There's no doubt about that. Yes, Brad Spielberger with us. Give me some names of guys still on the market that you think would be really good out there for some teams that, at least until this point, will be overlooked. And also, Julian Blackmon. What do you think his best situation may end up being? Because it sure as hell looks like it's not going to be here.
Yeah, it's a pretty thin list now, but I do think Justin Simmons, the safety, and obviously, we're talking safety right there with Julian Blackmon. I think Simmons is asking for a pretty strong number. Obviously, he got cut by Denver, but we saw, for example, Kevin Ballard get cut by the Titans or I guess the Eagles, and still sign a 2-year, $15 million deal. So I imagine that's a floor for Justin Simmons at this point, but he is still one of the best free safeties in the NFL, one of the best ball hawking, make plays in the football when it's in his coverage area players across the league. Actually mentioned Steven Nelson. He's still out there, a very good zone corner, very, very reliable in all different kinds of coverages. He maybe does make sense to bring in to Indianapolis. So those are probably two guys I think would make the biggest impact if they came in to the Colts specifically.
Awesome. What are you writing about, Brad?
Yeah, so we're still covering all things free agency. Some things still left to be done, and then we're pivoting to the draft big time. I got a mock draft coming out. My first mock draft of the offseason. I held out. Some people have 10 of them out there by now. I got my first one coming out on Monday.
And we already know who you have the Colts picking at 15.
You sure do.
Awesome. Well, we'll keep this thing going, man. We love your input every Tuesday, and we'll see if Chris Ballard can get a little bit of the Costanza opposite going here, which I think a lot of people would love. But again, I don't know if it does that good. Like I've had people say, well, at least he was taking that cut at Hunter and taking that cut at Snead. Hey, you don't know how in-depth they went. It may have just been, hey, what about that guy? Yeah, maybe. Okay, well, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to move on and re-sign our own. So maybe as simple as that. So if you're trying to explain it away as, well, they tried, but I don't know if that exactly works.
Yeah, I hear you. We'll see. But I do believe a lot of people change their philosophy and pivot when circumstances change, and I think that could be the case here as well.
You got it, Brad. As always, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Spielberger of PFF in studio on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Check that, not in studio, because Evan Sherrill's in studio. Doug Boles going to be here, Speedway Prez, in a minute. Evan, of course, of Cluster Truck. Get that microphone down there in front of your face and talk it up. Cluster Truck. We missed you last week.
I missed you guys.
The boss came in here.
Yeah.
Did the boss have a good time?
I think so.
Good, I'm glad. I think the boss, I didn't know if the boss wanted to go on the air.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. She definitely
make
did.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't know. I want to make sure that was the case. But, hey, awesome. How we doing?
Doing well.
We kicking ass and taking names with Cluster Truck?
Trying to, yeah. The fan is definitely helping. We can't lie.
Would you go to the Players last weekend?
Oh, no. That would have been nice.
Would you go?
Nice. I couldn't come because we were closing on our house. So new house over.
You're living over there by Swebo.
Yes, sir.
Oh, my goodness.
The Players would have been pretty sweet, though.
See if you can catch a picture of him without him wearing a hat. See what happens. I don't think I've ever seen him in my life without a hat.
I'll see what I can do.
Swebo's got the hat. All right, what'd you bring for us today, Evan?
Got the taco salad for you. Fresh pico and corn sauce on top.
That's what I'm talking.
Served with our house-made Chipotle ranch dressing.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. And then what else? We got the carne con queso for you as well with our freshly fried in-house fried chips.
Does that mean meat and cheese?
Meat and cheese.
Oh, yeah, I took Spanish.
Can't beat meat and cheese.
1 and 2 in high school.
And then for James, released today, we brought our Dunk Fest special. It's for March Madness, men's and women's tournament. It's going to be running for every game. It's got cheesy bread, 2 pounds of chicken strips, chips and queso, and our churros, and all the homemade sauces with it.
I am so happy right now.
2 pounds of chicken strips.
Perfect for sharing. So, Doug Boles comes in studio.
Yeah.
Maybe you kick him some cheesy bread. Who knows? Yeah. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm going
for the diet plate. And James, man, hits that Dunk Fest home run right
I've got
there.
all the carbs, and I'm so happy with that right now.
That's great, buddy.
Cluster Truck's the best of both worlds. You could eat healthy. You could eat house-made goodness.
The only problem with me is I probably won't eat tonight until about 11.
Okay.
And which I think that probably sidetracks the health. People tell me you never should eat after 8. Is that true?
I do hear that, but I don't follow that myself
I don't
either.
follow those rules. After a little hoop tonight, we'll probably be certainly diving into that.
But the hoop, then, that is health right there. So.
Yeah, just going to waste my time out there playing basketball and sweating a little bit. Who am I fooling? I'm not going to be playing hard enough to sweat anyway, so yeah. I can't wait for the taco salad. What is it, the con carne again? What?
Carne con queso.
Oh, yeah.
Our
That's
house-made white
meat.
queso,
Meaty
seasoned ground
cheese.
beef, meat and cheese.
All right, what's the most popular on the menu right now at Cluster Truck?
Oh, man. The lazy breakfast burrito and buffalo chicken wrap are always up there. Tots, always up there.
I love tater tots.
And check out our Dunk Fest special. It's only $30 for all that food, 25% off with code THEFAN. You can't beat it for March Madness.
Get that 25% off. Use the promo code THEFAN. How can they get a hold of you?
Clustertruck.com. Download the app off the App Store, Google Play. Free delivery everywhere from Fountain Square up through Carmel.
Awesome. Evan, thank you as always. We're going to keep this thing going, right?
Absolutely.
I love
absolutely.
Tuesdays
Thank you,
around
guys.
here. It's Evan.
Hey, my favorite, too.
From Cluster Truck right there. Again, Dunk Fest, 25% off?
Fan.
With code THEFAN right there. Sorry about that, James. With the code THEFAN. Thanks, Evan.
Thank you.
Evan of Cluster Truck in studio. We do have Hoop tonight. True TV at 6:40. Howard and Wagner and Virginia and Colorado State. Hold on. Let me get a live look on how we're all going to feel watching Virginia after 9 o'clock tonight play offense. Virginia, Colorado State, a little bit after 9 later on tonight. Boilermakers find out who they play on Friday at 7:25 in round number 1. Montana State and Grambling, that's coming up tomorrow at 6:40. Boise State, shocked at where they ended up in the first 4 on Selection Sunday. Boise State and Colorado will be the nightcap, again, on True TV. Coming up tomorrow night at 9:20. You ever watch True TV, James? You know what True TV is?
Oh, yeah. I used to watch, me and my family used to watch, like, Forensic Files.
You have something like
there.
Crank Yankers or something like that on there? What do they do?
I haven't watched it for
Can
a
I
while.
say that? I think there's a show called Crank. Oh, wait a minute.
I mean, you've already said it, so.
That may be an adult film that I watched back in 1985.
a Skinamax or whatever you call it.
I thought wasn't there a show with prank calls called Crank Yankers?
I have never heard of that, but there could be.
I don't know if I should have said that on the air. My bad. I thought there was a show entitled that.
I can Google it.
Hey, we've got Doug Boles in studio. We got a Carb Day. I think there are 3. I don't know the first one. He'll have to explain that. But I do know the other 2. Gin Blossoms and George Thorogood and the Destroyers. James.
Just so you know, Crank Yankers is an adult puppet show.
I had no idea that was the case.
They do make prank calls.
Oh, adult. It wasn't an adult.
It's not like, it's not
Okay.
adult.
All right.
It's like adult comedy.
I thought, well, wait a minute. Crank Yankers. Doug Boles in studio. We'll have some beers and talk about Carb Day and talk about all the fun leading up to the month of May. Doug's coming up. Matt Painter, head coach of the Boilermakers, today at 5 o'clock. I want to ask him the feel he has on this team compared to the feel he had on his team a year ago. And I do want him to go truly deep inside his program, where it is, because he said you got to make changes. He also talks about how, you know what, if you lose games like they did a year ago, you got to own it. And certainly he and they have owned it. These are some big moments coming up for the Boilermakers, and Matt Painter coming up today at 5 o'clock. 239-1070 is the number. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Jefferson Shreve stepped up to
The Ride with JMV.
Sis boom ba. Sis boom ba. Describe the sound made when a sheep explodes.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I think Doug Boles is stuck in traffic right now. I am not drinking alone, Doug, so get in here. Well, we'll talk a little bit about Carb Day coming up, too. There's always a grand debate regarding Carb Day. Doug Boles in studio coming up. Matt Painter's going to join us top of the hour, too. A lot regarding the Boilermakers coming up today at 5. You will not want to miss that, Boilermaker fans. Nick writes this: you're a lot more like Mike Greenberg than you think. Come on now. He has a whole bit with the Costanza opposite thing. Here's the difference. I don't do bits, though. I do observations. Yeah, bits, not so much me. And they want me to do it a lot more. They want me to play sound. Sound's not really me either. Here's the reason why: because most of the sound that comes up on this show will have been, almost 20 hours old by now? At least 15 to 20 hours old. So I'm not the biggest sound. I don't mind, big play sounds, right? But just hearing somebody talk, I can tell you what, basically Tyrese Haliburton had to say after last night's game. He was hugely disappointed. He owned everything and said, I have to be better. And you know what? He's exactly right. A lot of people have suggested with that in mind that, don't go all in on Tyrese Haliburton, all right? He's going through a struggling time. He's in a slump. I'm not going all in, but I'm just telling you what everybody already knows. This team will go as far as he can lead in basically every category. Offensively speaking, he is what makes this thing run. And if he is not out there playing at a high level, then most of the time you're going to see, against a team like last night, all right, you get a clunker. But they were a clunking team in Cleveland without a lot of their main players, like Donovan Mitchell. That's a game you got to win. But it's just made more difficult if you have your guy, your elite level player, being in a slump. So all I'm saying, and I think all we all are saying, is that if he doesn't play to that level in which we became accustomed to earlier this season, this team doesn't have any chance. It just doesn't. Think about that last night against a good team. Or for that matter, think about that team last night against a Cleveland team that wasn't playing some dude named Merrill all the time and stroking threes against him. And part of the issue is also offense. We talk so much about the defense and what they don't have. But what they've had this season is ample amounts of offense when they're good. And when that goes away, it is problematic, as we've seen. Now, the one point we've made regarding Buddy Hield, I can't really hate to regurgitate that because there's nothing you can do about it. And the only thing I can tell you is we had mentioned how profoundly that was going to have an effect on this team and its offense, and it certainly has. But, again, the biggest effect has been just the slump of its star player. And we talked about this last week. Remember what I said he has to do? He has to dictate the terms again, which he did, with the basketball in his hands for this team when they played the best, at their best. And until he does that, this team's going to knock around as we've seen it knock around. It's not been all bad, but certainly I think we all look at it as expecting much better. He was dictating terms with the basketball, on the pass, on the shot, on the dribble drive. And you saw him last night at the end of the game. He could not shake loose of guys. And then that's what's obvious. But I go back to the start of the game, and even when they went out to a 15-point lead, even at the start of the game, the offense just is not crisp like it once was. And people suggest, well, the ball sticks with Siakam. At times it does, but it can also stick with Haliburton if he doesn't have his thing going. And without him sharing the basketball as he normally did, others aren't better. This team isn't better. And then obviously they're vulnerable for a game as they had last night. Or games like we have seen here recently against teams. Let's just say this for what it's worth. In the standings, Cleveland is much higher, and they played really well. But that team last night in Indy deserved an absolute beatdown from the home team. And didn't get it, and they came out with a win. But again, you strive to be that type of player. And then people tell you, because of what you have done as an example, what you have shown you are that type of player, and you got to work your way through it. All these dudes have been through it. You know, they talk about, I think there's something new, I forget where it is now, some type of NBA show where it kind of has the new generation of top-level players talking. And I think Tyrese is talking about, you know, who's next and this group who is stepping up to be, you know, the next superstar players. That's what every one of them will get. They're going to get that treatment on defense, and they're going to get that treatment if things don't work out to what we have accepted as the level of expectations. And that is the cut and the dry, and that is what he owned last night. And we'll see if they have enough time here down the stretch for that to change. And if it doesn't, it's going to be a little quick in and then out type of scenario, you would think. At some point, hopefully it changes. What did I say, the last 8 games? And some nights you'll say, oh, yeah, the last 8 games, you got it. Yeah, JMV, I get what you're talking about. That works. And then you watch last night and you're thinking, man, I wish they didn't have, like, the final 8 games. They are so flirting with being where they don't want to be in this postseason picture. But they have to have the production from their main guy. Other guys can stumble, and it may be something that affects them, but just not as we've seen it with Haliburton. Because, again, he affects every aspect of what they do offensively. He just does. Every single aspect. He is the reason why they're good. And when he has nights like last night or, you know, nights during this slump that we have been accustomed to seeing, it's why they play down to that level. Yeah, college basketball, I don't think I have to be old and crusty to say that this whole transfer portal stuff stinks. Am I a boomer because of that? I'm not a boomer. I'm Generation X, for one. Yeah, let me say this. Generation X will whip your ass. I don't know about the whole boomer status, but Generation X will get after you a little bit. We certainly slacked a great deal, but we'll come at you. I don't necessarily think you have to be old. Think about Alabama. Alabama getting a guy from the transfer portal as they're still playing or yet to play in the NCAA tournament. It is absolutely laughable. There's Doug out there in the hallway. He looks like he's lost. I think he's looking over in WIBC. You want to go out and grab him really quick? He has a cooler, so we got to pop that thing open here really quick. Doug Boles going to join us in a second when James goes to track him down. But no, getting back to the point, yeah, everybody who seemingly thought this was all a good idea. I know you like with no windows and such in here is great. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I'm going to grab one in just a second. Everybody that really nationally, oh, yeah, we got to do this, and it's going to be great, and now they absolutely hate it. Yeah, that mic and that chair right there. Speedway president hit his microphone over there, James. Doug Boles in the house this afternoon with some milk. That's not what I'm going to be drinking here. Is that okay with you? There's nothing wrong with it.
I brought more than milk.
You know, a little calcium intake there, but I'm going to go ahead and throw that back.
This is your bottle of milk to get you ready for the Indy 500.
man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
So do we call it IUPUI or Indiana or Purdue now? I got stuck on New York Street on the way over here.
Oh, well, the students all getting out and walking across the street and such?
The light seemed like it was really, I can complain the mayor, the light seemed really short there, and then it just backed way up. So
that's a bummer, man.
So
that's IUPUI. They're in search of a new basketball coach. Were you aware of that?
I saw that, yeah. Luke's doing a good job over there, though. It'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Basso.
Yeah.
He's a man about town, too.
He's a great guy. He's a really great guy. Loves our community, loves the city. He's another great leader.
But they need somebody that is direct and has, obviously all those tentacles of communication here with that program. That program should have been so much better basketball-wise than it has been. And I think he's the right dude to put it in the place in which the expectations meet.
Yeah, I hope so. I know that was a tough deal for him when you got yes, sir, I do want one of those. And these are the Indy 500 cans too. So these are this is not milk, and I love the Dairy Association, but today I could use a Miller Lite.
Miller Lite. All right, we're gonna actually get into why this is so needful right now for you and us. I'll tell you what, give me a break. We'll come back. You want to do that? Matt Painter, top of the hour, Doug Boles, right here. We'll talk about Carb Day and why it may be necessary for Doug and I to have about 5 or 6 beers. Miller Lights right here. Doug Boles, Speedway president in studio, back after this.
Back in my day, we would camp in the back.
Ride with JMV.
Excuse me, Robo. Any special message for all the kids watching at home?
Stay out of trouble.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
The transfer portal is open right now. 3 IU players going into it. Peyton Sparks, who, at least my opinion, would have been better served staying and playing for Michael Lewis at Ball State. Caleb Banks is in, and CJ Gunn is also in the transfer portal. And we'll see who else gets in. A lot of names I'm sure will be in before we're even off the air. We'll keep track of that. Pacers a loser last night to the Cavaliers. Up next tomorrow night against the Pistons. That is the start of a Western road swing where they don't start out going west against the Pistons. Then obviously tonight you got the first 4 underway in Dayton, Ohio. Wagner and Howard, game number 1. This is True TV, by the way, to Colorado State and Virginia in the nightcap this evening. Of course, the winner between Grambling and Montana State is coming up tomorrow night in that game. The winner gets at 7:25 on Friday. The Boilermakers. Matt Painter joins us at the top of the hour. Speedway president Doug Boles in studio today. How we doing, by the way? Ice cold Miller Lights for Miller Lite Carb Day. We're downing those. Got a little bit of milk. You see what I reach for first? The calcium and the health of milk, or an ice cold Miller Lite right here is what I go through.
It's Miller Lite Carb Day conversation, so you have to go with the Miller Lite, and then usually on this day I'm ready to have a drink or two, so it's always good to come in and hang out with you and bring the cooler beer, and we get to debut the Miller Lite cans, which is fun.
This Miller Lite can is awesome too. A fine Pilsner.
I grew up in a house where we had a Coke machine in the house.
Did you really?
And my dad was a Miller Lite drinker because the Miller Lite can fit in the Coke machine, and it was in the Mr. Pibb lane. And so I grew up a Miller Lite guy.
Mr. Pibb got hosed out of that.
I switched to Keystone Light in college because it was cheap.
Exactly.
And then now I'm kind of back to the Miller Lite.
Now is Keystone Light produced by Miller?
It's a spin-off of Coors, right? It was sort of the cheap man's Coors Light, and college. That was.
I try to be understanding of who has a spinoff of.
Yeah, they've all kind of merged together. It's a little. It's not like the old days, right?
A little bit. All right. So you just heard George Thorogood and the Destroyers on the way back in. That's going to headline Miller Lite Carb Day coming up this May. Early thoughts, early feedback.
It's mixed, like it always is on Carb Day. It's a challenge for us to really try and figure out where we are in the music. First and foremost, we're a racetrack. So the most important thing for me is to make sure that on race day Sunday, we've got 300,000 plus people there. So big focus on that. We've really started focusing an awful lot on the Snake Pit, because that is 25,000 young adults under the age of 30 that come to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that might not otherwise.
Blake is going. Blake wants to go, so he's going.
It's a great event. And then Carb Day has historically been 80s bands, and as you can see, we're beginning to run out of those 80s bands. And the younger folks on the team, I think, are starting to think about, okay, how do we transition to more of those 90s, early 2000 bands? And I don't think we're far away from that. And then we've always talked about this, the radius challenges and all the other stuff to find the right people. And on a holiday weekend, it's a challenge. But George Thorogood is definitely beer drinking music.
Yes.
The Gin Blossoms tend to be a little bit older, a little bit mellower maybe than the Gin Blossoms, than George Thorogood. But it's mixed as it always is.
I'm kind of curious. Did you have to? What was the negotiation with Thorogood? Because this could be me, and if you don't want to go into it, I understand. But I thought sure that Thorogood, cause there's a 90-day rule.
Correct.
You made me aware of that. You've educated me on that a great deal. And I thought I saw them somewhere else.
They
around
are. And we had to
here.
get that, and we had to get. So they're playing Nashville.
That's what I thought.
And
I didn't want to, and by the way, Christian and the gang down there do a great job.
And they were great to work with. So we had to get them to allow us to have a show inside of the window, and then together we agreed on. They didn't want us to announce until after March 11th because they thought it would impact their ticket sales. So when you start to work with promoters like that, and that's what you run into with a lot of other artists that are inside. Oftentimes it's a 100-mile radius, which you think about Indianapolis, that puts us into Louisville and a lot of other markets. And the good thing about the folks in Nashville, they're Hoosiers, and they wanted to be helpful when it's an artist that's in a market that's not here. in Indiana. Often if they're in Dayton or if they're in Cincinnati or someplace like that, those people, they don't want to help us. So that becomes challenging. So it was nice to have a promoter who said, yeah, we get it. We'd love to have.
They're great people down there.
They're super good
You
people.
and I need to go to a show. Have you been to a show there?
Not in a long time. I'd love to get down there.
You have got to go down there because it is a fantastic venue.
Yep. So that's part of the challenge, but they were super helpful in working with us to get the announcement. And honestly, Billy Idol had interest. So there's an 80s band that hadn't been here, and again got in the same situation where that just the travel doesn't work. And we're going to have to sit down and really decide how much longer can we continue to do the 80s thing. We had REO and Styx scheduled for 20, and that didn't happen. And I think that's a concert that could be really, really cool, but. It's about time probably where we start thinking about some of the younger folks.
Well, and a lot of what you just mentioned has that 90-day rule considering venues around here.
For sure.
They already have announced concert dates.
And artists can't make decisions sometimes for one-offs until they know what their Live Nation tours are going to be. And we're not a Live Nation venue. The Iowa show, I've seen a lot of traffic about, Iowa's got X, Y, and Z. Well, Iowa's promoted by Live Nation. So that makes that, so we've partnered with them. So we could look at maybe partnering with Live Nation as an opportunity to maybe open the field up a little bit more for us. But again, our big thing is it's about Race Day Sunday, and we're just really focused on that in terms of our biggest piece.
Doug Boles in studio, Speedway president. The Miller Lite Carb Day features George Thorogood and the Gin Blossoms. Have you never been partnered with Live Nation on any concert before?
So Live Nation works with us for our Riley Green concert the night before. That's our first time.
That's what I thought. Okay.
That's our first time really working with them the last couple of years when we moved the Legends Day concert to downtown from the venue at the Speedway. And so they're great. They've been fantastic to work with. We even had a conversation last year about how do we work together on Carb Day, Legends Day, Race Day, Snake Pit, and even some of if they bookended things, if they had a cool concert on Thursday and a cool concert on Monday, and just make this massive, 5-day concert opportunity in the market. But we just haven't followed up on those conversations, but that's probably something we'll continue to do. They've been fantastic to work with in terms of over here at White River.
How does that partnership work, by the way? Let's just say you partner up with Live Nation to help you get something done on Carb Day. How does that work?
Well, that's what we'd have to figure out. How does it work at our venue? So, like, for example, at their venue, we sit down. Firestone is the title sponsor. Firestone brings a lot of folks in. We need X number of tickets for the Firestone side of things and for the IndyCar side and IMS side of things. So we say, hey, we can come up with this many tickets. You guys want to sell that many tickets, and we work together on an artist that they believe works well for both of us, and that's where we end up. So we'd have to. It's a little bit more challenging when it's at our venue than it is at one of their venues.
Yeah, George Thorogood and the Destroyers and the Gin Blossoms. How long did it take you to come to that conclusion? You gave me the March 11th date because of Brown County Music Center and announcing that, but I was kind of curious, how long did it take you to come up with this decision?
Well, when you and I talked, it was early February probably when we were kind of going through.
Did you like all my options I gave you?
Yeah, no, your options are great. The problem is when you start going into those options, they're just they're so challenging. And
did you notice how many of those options all of a sudden now showed up on the schedule around here?
Yeah.
Because I can I tell them what I...
For sure, 100%.
Okay. So I offered this. He gave me the budget, and I offered Gin Blossoms. That was one at the time. And Collective Soul was another from the 90s. And I offered up the Violent Femmes from the 80s. And then lo and behold, 4 days ago, you find out that the Violent Femmes are playing here coming up in May. So,
yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and trying to make this work and make it fun. And as we've talked about before, the biggest thing for me is if you get there on Carb Day, even if you don't know George Thorogood or you don't know the Gin Blossoms, you're going to sit there and you go, wow, I know those songs.
Yeah.
And part of it is just enjoying time with a lot of folks out there. We're going to change the venue up a little bit to make it a little bit more customer friendly in terms of use of the spectator mound that was there that last year was concession stands were in the way. So I think that's going to make a big challenge for the venue, or make it much better for the venue. And, looking forward to just getting May underway.
All right. I want to talk about why Billy Idol bailed.
Yep.
Or that wouldn't work, and some other things as well. Can you hang around? I'm going to talk to Matt Painter here.
Yeah, I'm going to hang around because I want to hear what Coach has to say.
Yeah, exactly. Matt Painter's going to join us, and we'll continue to enjoy. I'll have to tell Matt that I'm having the little Miller Lite right here in studio. Miller Lite Carb Day again. Thorogood and Gin Blossoms. Doug Boles, Speedway president in studio. Head coach of the Boilermakers, Matt Painter, set to join us. Is coming up next.
You love spring and Indy, so don't spend it painting. Do what your neighbor Mike did. He called Rhino Shield.
Our home is basically a contemporary, and we just started noticing that the
The Ride with JMV.
Give me my theme music!
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, back in studio here with Doug Boles, Speedway president, coming up in just a bit. Boilermakers, 7:25 on Friday. Somebody downtown, find me a spot, too. I want to get out with the Boilermaker fans and do some drinking before that 7:25 start. They find out between Grambling State and Montana State who they get tomorrow night as a part of the first four. Again, that's underway officially tonight. That game, that determination who they play, happens coming up tomorrow night. But to talk about the one seed in the Midwest, let's go to the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now. Welcome to the show, the head coach of the Boilermakers. It is Matt Painter. Hey, Matt, thank you for the time. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on.
The thoughts down the stretch of your team, obviously with the end result this past Saturday in the semifinals up in Minneapolis. How'd you feel your team was playing up until that point and as we enter this NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I thought our team, finished the season really strong. Obviously being able to, our last three games were against tournament teams. To be able to beat Michigan State and Wisconsin at home, have a big win at Illinois, then obviously beat Michigan State again in the tournament. We didn't play great. I didn't think against Michigan State. I thought we made enough necessary plays coming down the stretch to be able to win it. We were in a position to win the game at Wisconsin. We just didn't finish the game. We had a costly turnover there at the end, and didn't get a stop there at the end in both regulation and the overtime. But it's just one of those things after going through it, last year and winning the Big Ten tournament, and then obviously the tough loss that we had going through that, and you just kind of prepare to win and prepare to lose at that point to say, okay, what's the most important thing? Well, the most important thing is the NCAA tournament. So we really talked about that before we even went to the tournament and just said, no matter what happens, we're going forward and we're going to get excited about playing in the NCAA tournament and have big-time energy. So our guys are excited about the tournament. I think we've done some good things. I didn't think we were great defensively against Wisconsin. I thought we did some things better defensively against Michigan State in the tournament. I thought we did some really good things. Guarding Terrence Shannon when we went to Illinois, we kind of kept him out of transition by taking care of the basketball, and that's key for us. You look at our losses. We had 4 losses this year. Our turnovers are 14 or more in those games. I think we're 14 or more and maybe 2, maybe 3 wins. The rest of them are underneath that. So that's a big stat for us in terms of just taking care of the basketball.
Here's Matt Painter, the head coach of the Boilermakers. Again, 7:25 in what should be a raucous Gamebridge Fieldhouse coming up on Friday night here in downtown Indy. So I've been asked this a lot. I'm just going to put it to you because you would know better than anybody else. Does this time off, not advancing to that championship game rest-wise, does that help your guys, Matt?
Yeah, I think so. It's one of those things where, you don't have a choice either, right? So when you lose that game, everybody's trying to win that game. But, when you look at things being able to get some rest, really February was good for us. We had a tough January in terms of rest. And so we didn't have a lot of rest there. It was just a lot of time, just one day a week, getting one day off. We got probably, I think, 2 days off a week for 3 of the 4 weeks of February. We got 2 days off in already 2 weeks, here in March. So I think that really helps. But more than anything, the collective rest, through February and March, because that's what you want to be. You want to be on edge, but, you want to have your legs and you want to be ready to roll.
Everybody feeling good? Obviously start with Braden Smith. We saw, what happened to him and, obviously came back. He's been playing and he good. Right. Zach Edey good. Where you stand right now?
Yeah, we're fine. You see people that say stuff and they just don't watch. It's he got hurt in the game. He came back and played in the game. The next day he plays 35 minutes. So, but everybody in the country's got 2 or 3 guys that are banged up a little bit, right? That's just the way it is after you go through a 5-month season.
Hey, you mentioned this to me last year. I remember, too. The lack of rest you get is when you go kind of wall to wall, as you guys did certainly a year ago. How much do you think is going to help your team going into the NCAA tournament with that rest that you just brought up a moment ago, as far as getting that?
Right, and it really just affects a handful of people because the guys coming off the bench outside of Mason Gillis aren't high minutes guys. Those guys don't average more than, 20 minutes a game, 15 minutes a game, whatever it might be. So, like, it's really those starters, like those guys that are logging, that 25 to 35 minutes. Those are the guys that's important that, they really get treatment, get rest, and are ready to go because they're the ones that, that get the heavy minutes. But, we feel like we're in a good place, and, we have fought really hard to get back to where we were last year. And now we just, want to piece it all together and go out there and have some fun and play hard.
Here's Matt Painter on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Is there a different feel? You mentioned, wanted to be high energetic going into this NCAA tournament. Is there a different feel with this group than there was a year ago, or is that even anything you've considered, Matt?
No, I think that the different feel is the fact that we've shot the ball so much better than we did the year before. Like we were piecing it together the year before. And you got to have two-way players. You got to have guys that can help you on both ends of the court. And I just think our ability, I think we ended up the season as the second best three-point shooting team in the country behind Kentucky. And, you want, when you have a guy like Zach Edey, you got to have that balance. And like that, our ability to shoot the basketball this year has really, really given us that balance. But more than anything, I think it just gives our team confidence, especially going down the stretch of just executing, taking what the defense gives you, and just taking your shots.
Hey, Matt, Miles Colvin's been getting more minutes as of late. What are you seeing in his game that has evolved, I guess, during his freshman season there?
Right. It's very difficult for a young player to be on a deep team because when you bring guys in, you're bringing guys in, and they really, for a guy like him that can really shoot and score the ball, you need to get into a rhythm. And that's hard to do when you play, sometimes 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it might be. It's really, really hard. He's going to be a fabulous player here. So, like, coming in and then, like, getting rebounds, getting loose balls, defending, doing a lot of those little things to help you stay on the court. Because if he gets opportunities, sometimes he gets in the game and he'll get 2 or 3 offensive opportunities, and it might not go in. And and it bothers you because you're a scorer. Like, that's the way you're wired. But it's the other things. And, like, when he's doing those things and he's defending and he's rebounding, now he can get in the game and stay in there longer. And then, like, you want him to get opportunities because that's his strength. He can really, really shoot the basketball.
Player like that, athletic yet young and hasn't been through it. When you start on the defensive end and then you start with just the overall effort, does that benefit the offensive end? Can you play off of the other end of the floor that helps benefit you with the level of confidence as you're playing offensively, Matt?
Yeah, no question. It works both ways, right? You make some shots, you become a better defender.
Defense is fun when you make shots, Matt. Come on now.
Yeah. You're setting your defense. You make shots, you keep setting your defense, and now they're not getting in transition and having angles. But he made a couple really good defensive plays. He had a really good block on Store in that game, and he's really worked hard. He's had a great attitude, and he's really put in a lot of time. But there's no doubt in the game of basketball that offense affects defense and defense affects offense.
So Matt Painter on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline again. Cambridge Fieldhouse 7:25 coming up on Friday. That first round matchup to be determined. So have you watched tape on both Montana State and Grambling State, or are you just going to wait till tonight to watch the matchup? How do you approach this when you don't know who your Friday opponent is going to be until after this evening?
Right. Yeah, you watch both of them because, like, you're having practices here. Obviously anything that they both do, you're going to work on. You know what I mean? Sometimes there'll be particulars for one team that's different than the other team. And so anything that you see that's anything different than what you've seen before, you definitely in these practices, want to put some time into it. Anything that's, similar, if they both run ball screen motion or they both, have a 2-3 zone or whatever it might be, those are the type of things, those consistencies you're going to work on. There's going to be things that you work on no matter who you play because you're working on, from your standpoint and what you do as a team. So, but we really wait. The game's actually Wednesday, so, we'll watch the game. We'll be ready for whoever wins the game, and then we'll dive right into it and have it ready. We'll have scouting reports ready for both teams. We'll have the clip tapes. We'll have the personnel. So we'll be locked and loaded and ready to see that winner, and then we'll really start to dive deeper into that scout. But our staff splits it. And so, we're on top of things.
Hey, Matt Painter joins us. What do you think about the region in which you were placed as the 1 seed overall? Have you had time to look up and down and what different teams look like?
No. I mean, I know who they are, but no, you just keep your focus on the game in front of you, and obviously you look towards the next round, but you don't put your focus towards the next round. So you do your legwork. People on your staff will have that prepared, whether if you're fortunate enough to win, then, now you move to your next game. But the people that do that are fans. Like as a coach, I like this, I like that. It never ends up being the same, right? There's always things that happen. So just keep your focus on your team, keep your focus on your opponent, and just, take it one game at a time.
Obviously, everybody's focus is Zach Edey. I want to start right here and then get some of your comments before I'll let you go into what you said about, what comes on to Zach, the outside opinions of Zach that has grown recently. But first, I want to start with this. What has he meant, just outside of what we see, Matt, what has he meant to you and this basketball program at Purdue, his time there?
Well, if you look at, Joe Barry Carroll's had the rebound record since 1980. Rick Mounts had the scoring record since 1970. You got one guy that's now broken both of those records. Last 3 years, we've won 29 games in each one of the seasons. He's the most successful player with the most wins. He's the all-time leading scorer. He's the all-time leading rebounder. He's been very, very impactful, not just to Purdue, but also the Big Ten Conference in college basketball. He's going to become a two-time National Player of the Year with, the likes of Oscar Robertson and Ralph Sampson and Bill Walton. But he's been great. He's worked really hard. Kind of came from nowhere, was not a player, in high school, developed to where he got recruited at a high level, but not by everybody. He was at IMG where everybody saw him. He went to the academies where everybody saw him, and very few people jumped on board to recruit him. And, we were fortunate. Steve Lutz, who's the head coach at Western Kentucky, did a good job of just kind of staying on him, and then he reclassed and kind of in the right place at the right time. He was close to going to Baylor. But he hung in there, and we were, like I said, we were fortunate to get him, but he's been fabulous. He's been great. It just shows you the level of ignorance that's out there. And if you get people that are just tweeting stuff or doing stuff, and they're just random fans, that's what they are, right? Who cares?
Sure.
Their opinion doesn't matter. But when you get radio hosts and different people that follow the game, that are doing whatever, that are saying crazy things, it's just, it's just a level of ignorance that's unmatched. But he doesn't deserve any of that. He doesn't. But deep down, it's words. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't. The people that understand basketball, the people that we go against from coaching and from playing, you see some tactics out there. You'll see guys that, are cheap shotting him and chucking him and doing some different things, and they make a big deal about all the calls that he gets. If you sit down and you actually watch the game and you know the rules and you watch what's going on from the two hands in the back to the knees to the hook and the holds to the guys trying to take charges when he's diving, things of that nature, where they're not trying to take those charges on anybody else in the country. And they're, that's how people get hurt. That's why they put the arc in there. That's why they changed the block charge and making guys be more set, because they don't want collisions. They don't want guys getting hurt. They want the safety of the game. But he causes a physical issue. The issue you get into is the familiarity with the people that are reffing the game. You're going to get in the NCAA tournament, you're going to get people that never reffed him. You can't have two rules. That's always been my thing. I think any ref would say the rules are for everybody, but yet as the game progresses, they'll call it differently for him than that. And they think we're getting away with it because at the end of the game, he's got 13 fouls drawn. But we'll go back and watch the game. Go back, how many times did he get fouled? By the letter of the law, 25, 20. You look at those things, and that's crazy. Man, that's not true. But if you sit down and watch games and you watch what goes on and you sit next to a ref and watch it with the ref, or you watch with somebody who knows the rules, they'll be like, that's a foul. That's a foul. I mean, I've had Final Four officials, not one of them, I've had 10 of them come over and say, we could call something. They foul him every play. He gets fouled every single play. And this is their words. And so, for him to kind of keep his – that resolve and that patience and not get caught up in into all of it, even though he gets frustrated at times, has really been outstanding.
He's a Matt Painter with us. Does it concern you? And I know you're not concerned at the whole outside. You mentioned what the fans say, and you reference, talk show hosts or whatever. But does it concern you at all that just all this talk, which ultimately a lot of people, if not everybody, sees, has an effect on the officials themselves if they read or take in those outside influences in a game, especially of this magnitude in the tournament?
Yeah, it shouldn't. They're supposed to be be professionals. It shouldn't. I know it doesn't affect the good ones. Yeah. I know that. You don't always get, a crew where, they like totally understand the game. But like as you get in the NCAA tournament and hopefully as you can advance, more and more guys, getting just the understanding of what the tactics are and what people are trying to do. Now, some people are great. Some people know how to defend him, and some people work at it and they stay legal, but they want to keep their guy in the game also. So, like, they got to, maneuver things, change defenses, do some different things against him. And it's great coaching. They understand that. They get the big picture of what's going on. Other people just keep fouling him and then just complain the whole time, and that's not basketball. That's, I'm sorry, but he's got the advantage, and most people his size aren't that good at basketball players, and he actually is. So it really puts them into a bind. You just can't get tired calling fouls. If you get refs that are going to, like, check a box and make a call and then just leave it alone for, like, 8 minutes, you end up having a problem. But you also end up, having a bigger problem because now you got a wrestling match going on at the rim.
It's interesting about, too, getting to the free throw line and getting flack. It's not lost on me that's what you want to do. I mean, that's a part of being a productive offensive player, Matt, is getting your ass to the free throw line as much as humanly possible. And it's coming from the state of Indiana. You know this as well. When Bob Knight was at IU, that was like the greatest attribute is they made more free throws than the other team shot. That was a big key on winning games. And sometimes I think that particular philosophy, especially in this case, is lost on a lot of people.
Yeah, no question, and that's exactly what you do. Like you want to make more free throws than the other team shoots, and that's the gold standard, and that's what we've been able to do. So when people do this, like we got into it, like with Northwestern and their coach got kicked out of the game, and he went there, and national media picked up what he said. But when you go and look at they foul more than anybody, and we foul the least amount in our league. And then we have him who takes the most free throws, not just in that game, but the whole season of anybody in the NCAA. So when you look at those three stats right there, you would say, well, one team is going to shoot more free throws than them. One team is going to shoot less free throws because that's what they do. One team shoots a lot of free throws. The other team shoots fewer free throws because they shoot more threes. This team fouls the most. This team fouls the least. When you look at that just from a natural basketball understanding, then like national media take in the disparity up on what he says and they leave the facts out of it. That's when it's just like, man, what are we doing here? Like, you can't just listen to somebody's emotional opinion after a game, especially when they get technicals and get thrown out of the game, when the facts don't back it up. And then you can go and watch, tape, okay, which foul are you saying is not a foul? Then like you talk in theory and say, well, our guy didn't get this. Well, your guy's not 7'4", 300. Your guy's 5'11", 180 pounds, and he shoots 35 footers. And so it's like you get into arguments like that just don't make sense. And that's just the whole thing. When you don't understand basketball and you're writing or you're promoting or you're talking about it or you're on a podcast or whatever it might be. Now, there's a lot of people out there that do understand it and they do get the big picture of it. But not everything falls into a theory bucket where you could, you have something where you set precedent and say, hey, like this happened with this guy. Okay, let's talk about the 7'4", 300 national, players of the year. Like how many of those guys are out there? Well, he's a subset of one. There's not any of it out there that's like him. So it gets a little frustrating for us because now, like, you don't want to get that on the human element where people are looking at it like, hey, man, you're getting this and you're getting that. Well, learn how to play post defense. I don't know what to tell you. Like, learn how to play ball screen defense. Learn how to be physical without fouling. Like, if you can do those things, you're going to be more successful against him. If you can't or you don't have somebody there, then we're going to have the advantage.
Among the things that he does in closing here, that he gets to deal with at the high level of player he is, dealing with stuff like that, those outside influence you just mentioned, is that an elite level too? Because to me, it would almost have to be, because you got to stay away from all that stuff, and it's almost impossible to try to keep yourself away from all that stuff.
But what happens is with players and then coaches out there totally understand this, and this has been really hard for players at any level, is the things that get said on a positive note can hurt you too.
I guess you're right. Yeah,
it's like the poison underneath your sink. Like, it can sit there. It's not going to hurt anybody if it just sits there. But if you want to pick it up and drink it, you're going to have a problem. That poison, when guys do well, hurts them too. So now You don't like it as a coach when young guys are just getting crushed, but that's just what happens. Coaches get crushed, players get crushed. We're used to it. Like in year 31, like you're used to it. Like you got to deal with it. Like that's part of it, but use it as motivation. Use that. Don't let what they're saying, how great you are, hurt you also. Don't let them, when they're being demeaning of you, use that part of it. Use that as motivation. But be strong in your convictions. Understand what matters are the people in our film room. Because people are here every day. They know the process. They know what we work on. They know what we're trying to do offensively. They know our defensive rules. Stick to it. We get in problem. We have problems like anybody else in the country. When you get off your rules, you get away from what we've worked on. Stay connected. Do your job. You hear all that stuff from coaches. When you do those things and you got the ability and you got the talent, good things are going to happen.
It's good to be me, I guess, because you've sucked your entire life and you have no high standards. And when people say you suck, and it's okay, then right, I don't have to worry about.
You're right.
I don't have to worry about.
That's when we lost last year. It's like what they're saying is true. Like don't you got to sit in that. Just sit in it. It's okay. Some of the best times for you to grow and be successful is being able to sit in adversity. But when you're honest, you can fix it. If you're not honest with yourself, you're not going to fix it. And that's what we're in the process of doing, because a lot of people wouldn't have fought to get back to where we were last year at this time. We have fought. We won our league by 3 games once again. Now we're a number 1 seed, and that's where we were last year. Okay, now we went through this. Now it's time to go. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for everybody in this tournament. It is not easy. And, you got to be ready to compete. You got to be ready to play at a high level. But I'm proud of our guys for getting us right back here and looking forward to the tournament.
I'm telling you, too, you live in a world where you got to own it. And then when you own it, then sometimes owning it's not enough, too. And just kind of the world in which we live right here. So, again, sitting with me, I suck, and I know that. So I'm 54 years old, and I don't have to deal with any high expectations. No, hey, seriously, though, the best of good fortune and certainly luck and production to you as we start coming up on Friday. I know you don't pay attention to this stuff, but I cannot wait to see Cambridge Fieldhouse on Friday night when you guys take the floor. That should be an outstanding atmosphere. And stay in touch, too. Tell everybody up there we said hello. And just have an outstanding tournament, Matt. I always appreciate you. Thanks for coming on.
All right, man. Thank you.
It's Matt Painter on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I love listening to him talk about basketball. I just kind of sit back and let it happen. And it is true. Part of my inner workings, I know this is true. I know I do suck and stink at stuff. But part of that is when you say it, then, hey, you know what? You diffuse when somebody says, you know what? That conversation, what you just did sucks. Yeah, well, okay. That's why they make shirts out of me sucking. On a much lower level, though, it is difficult to deal with at a high level. That was really good stuff right there from Matt Painter on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Let us take a break, and we shall return. It's been a busy day so far. We got more for you coming up. And again, 7:25 or thereabouts is that tip, and we'll find out who the Boilermakers play in round number 1. Montana State and Grambling State, of course, get underway for you. And we'll find out coming up on Friday, too, who they play, and we'll be talking about that right here. Hey, sit tight, don't go anywhere. Responses and more at 239-1070 coming up. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Business. It's all the things that keep this world turning. And behind every one of these companies is a partner helping to keep it all moving.
JMV.
Have you ever killed anyone?
Yeah, but they were all bad. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Matt Painter, head coach of the Boilermakers. Podcast, if you missed any of that, 1075thefan.com. Always really good with Matt. Kenny Chesney tickets we have to give away before the top of the hour. That's Ruoff Home Mortgage Music Center coming up later on in the summer. Got that for you. Speedway President Doug Boles back in studio right now. Actually, he's been in studio listening to Matt Painter and I
I'll tell you
converse.
what, I've turned into a Purdue fan. You know, I'm a Bulldog.
Yeah.
And I was an IU kid growing up, but I've got a junior at Purdue, and you just got to love the way Matt Painter coaches, the discipline, just his personality, and he's just so even-keeled. And, man, he can motivate those kids to play.
He is such – and I love basketball, but I love the mixture of basketball and everyman. He's just a dude.
He is.
He is a dude, and he likes hoop, and he will talk with you, converse with you. I see so many times he goes to high school gyms to recruit, and people come up and talk, and he'll just sit there and talk to you. He's a great guy, and specifically for a show like this, to where I just ask a 10-second question and turn him loose.
Right.
And that's exactly what I want. And he kind of lays out basketball his way, and I love it every time it comes on.
Yeah, it was really interesting to listen to him, especially given the week that it is and how challenging it. He's got a lot of things he's got to worry about, and hopefully they can make that run to the Final Four that we all want them to have.
No doubt about that. All right, Gin Blossoms and George Thorogood. That is Carb Day 2024 with our friends at Miller Lite coming up in May. So that was officially announced today. You had a bit of a story because sometimes there are swings and hits and sometimes there are swings and misses at various artists and bands. We know all about it. But you have a bit of a story regarding Billy Idol and an opportunity that did not take shape.
Yeah, so the nice thing about the Speedway is sometimes when artists start looking at their routing and they find a gap, every once in a while we'll get a call from an agent that says, hey, we've got so-and-so, and we think we've got an opportunity because the routing works to bring them through. And so we had early conversations with Billy Idol and thought we had something put together, and ultimately it fell apart in the negotiation phase. But, he would have been a fun one to have.
Yeah.
And again, when you go through those, and these negotiation phases with artists aren't 24 hours, right? It tends to be a long process as you work through all of it, and that's one of the other challenges. If you've got somebody you think you're interested in, and that drags on for 6 weeks, and it doesn't work, then you start all over again. Because you can't have dual conversations because all these agencies talk to each other. So if you're kind of having a dual conversation, then the one agent might say, well, I thought we were getting this gig, and it just...
And then they're going to negotiate against you by the information they get from
sure.
others.
And that's the other thing is you got to be careful what you're offering, and because those, even if something I might offer this year, somebody next year might say, well, you offered so-and-so this, why aren't you offering me that? And it's maybe because you don't sell the same number of tickets or you don't have the same number of hits. So it does become a challenge, and we have a group internally, and we meet and we talk through things, and at the end of the day, this is one of the most challenging days for me because I know a lot of people are going to be happy and a lot of people are going to be on the other side of the fence, and I so badly want people to love the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and all that we do. We're thrilled to represent our state on this magnificent stage. And Carb Day tends to sometimes be that one that's a bit of a challenge. But the one thing I know that happens is there is nothing like the party that Miller Lite Carb Day has, no matter who the artist is. And when people get out there and I see the smiling faces and somebody come up to me and say, oh, my gosh, I didn't know that guy sang this, and this, and,
right.
And the beer's still cold, and I'm at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and race day's 2 days from now, I got to remind myself, is that what it's all about? And it's going to be a good show.
Doug Boles in studio, so I'm reminded of a story last year. You got Blake, my son, and I backstage, Brian Adams on stage. And we're talking over there near Brian Adams as he's performing, and I got Blake back there. And Blake walks away, and I was kind of looking for him a little bit, and I look behind the stage, and he's sitting on this concrete barrier talking to this long-haired dude, right? And I go, okay, I don't know what's happening here. So I mosey over there, and I said, hey, man, what's up? And the long-haired guy said, so are you the dad? And I said, yeah. And he goes, hey, Dave Perner of Soul Asylum. He said, I was talking to Blake about what he wants to do for his career. And I said, that is awesome. I think Blake was there for 10 minutes talking to Dave Perner.
You and I have had this conversation a lot. It's the same with Coach and a lot of folks. When you get a chance to really get to know the artists, I mean, they really want to help. They love engaging with people. They love kids, which is awesome to see. And the biggest challenge in all these things isn't the artist. It's just all of the stuff that's in between you and the artist to get it done. And those are the moments where you go, okay, this is a good dude. He's taking time with my kid to talk about what's he going to do.
I still have Brian Adams' cell phone number. He answered his own
I don't have it.
phone.
You got it. That's awesome. Yeah.
I called British Columbia, and I mean, hell, I think it was like 8 a.m. or something. And I call, and he goes, warehouse here. And I said, yeah, I'm looking for Brian Adams. This is he. Okay, great. It's Brian Adams right there.
The one phone number I have that I love is, so Matt Sorum, we ended up with Kings of Chaos a couple of years ago, and that was another one where people were like, who's Kings of Chaos? And when you think about all the bands that they represent and the hits that they got to play. So Matt's a huge racing fan and actually did a private concert at the Speedway for Hendricks Regional Health last fall, and he was in, and we're testing out a thermal this weekend with our thermal race, which is not a points-paying race, but this cool race that we've got scheduled, and I'm going to see if I can get Matt to come out to thermal. Maybe we can get him in a 2-seater. But they are good guys, and they thoroughly love coming to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
So many people that I've talked to about that, and even going back years, I remember having a long backstage conversation with Howard Jones, and he hadn't played Carb Day, but when he comes to town, he comes out there and gets in the 2-seater.
Well, it's amazing. We'll get people who come through even on a day that we don't have something going on, and somebody will call and say, hey, so-and-so is a big racing fan, and we're in Indianapolis. Is there anything we can do? So we try, if we can, to get him in a 2-seater. If not, we'll get one of the Corvettes out and give him some high-speed laps in a Corvette, because any opportunity we can showcase the Speedway, and certainly the city of Indianapolis and the state of Indiana, is important to us. And it's amazing how many people are race fans. So we got this big Eclipse event coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And Drew Fustel, who was a Purdue grad but lived on the space station for almost a year, in history, there's only 3 people that have spacewalked longer than he has. Massive race fan. He can't wait to come in for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So it's neat when you see people who love what you do, who are in a completely different world. And the rest of us, like you and I, you spend your life talking about sports. I do motorsport, but when there's a music guy around, we want to talk about music. We don't want to talk about right. It's fascinating to see how and on the flip side, they want to talk about what we're doing, and it's pretty fun. So that's one of the cool things about the job for sure.
I have always found this, and we were talking during the break about Shane Steichen coming on the show a couple of weeks ago, and Shane Steichen so far is notoriously to most very short, and not because he's angry or mad or doesn't want to be there. He just is short in his answers. So I tried this year. I did a face-to-face and had him in studio, and it's interesting, and it's always been interesting to me. All right, they don't always want to talk about football. Well, you can get him to be longer in his answers if you talk about stuff like we talked about college basketball a ton. So you just get sick and tired of talking about that,
right? And
you go to something else, and it's kind of interesting that way. So Doug Boles in studio. I'm curious. We always talk about this. I have not seen yet any films, any relatables, connections you might have as far as who you might try to bring in for this year's race. Are you guys on to some of the celebrity stuff yet?
Yeah, so one of the things that, I'm going to get myself in trouble with the PR
That's okay.
team,
Nobody's listening to this anyway.
Well, one of the things I'm most excited about is going to be our flyover, because our friends at the Thunderbirds are going to come back over, which is great. I can't wait to have them. That's always good when they get to come in town. Having the Air Force here is.
I'm going to drink another one if you don't mind, by the way, too.
It's all right.
Miller Lite, everybody.
I'm doing mine as well, so we're good. No, the Thunderbirds are great. We hopefully we're going to have our pace car driver announcement here coming up. We've got somebody lined up that I think will be really strong. We have in the last few years, Tyrese Haliburton drove the pace car for us, which was fantastic.
How did he do with that?
Yeah, he was great. He was what we learned with a lot of athletes when you put them in. If you bring a coach in to help them, because it does take some skill. And it does take some discipline at the same time. It's not just, hey, go out and see how fast you can go. It's a certain amount of speed. You got to be comfortable with a bunch of guys behind you and gals behind you who want to pass you. And just how do you deal with that? And you've got 300,000 people there, so it does take some of that. And he was fantastic.
Was he nervous?
I think he was a little nervous.
We had him on the pre-race show, and he didn't say he was nervous, but I kind of got the feeling, excitement, I guess.
So it's like any rookie at the Speedway, I think, when you spend the whole time in there and you've got 20 or 30,000 people in the venue, and then you show up on race day and there's 330,000 people there. It's a completely different kind of feel. And so I do think he was a little bit, but he did a great job. We've had him out to do some other things, but we've got that one coming up. I think we're going to I'm pretty excited about our national anthem singer. I'm excited about our God Bless America singer. We've got some really good stuff, and those will start rolling out here in the next week or two.
I can't wait for that, too. Now, are you guys close to being sold out?
Depends on how you define sold out. So just to be really transparent.
Okay, compared to
2016 is what we'd have to compare it to, right? Because we did sell out in 2016. Right. So on May 1st in 2016, we announced that we had a reserve seat sellout, and then we sold GA tickets. And really, you could sell 300,000 GA tickets probably inside the Speedway. It would be a terrible experience for 220,000 of those people. So we ultimately decided that we needed to stop that the week of the Indy 500 and call the sellout. Our reserve seats are significantly higher than they've been in 23, which were higher than really it's the highest they've been in 25 years, with the exception of the 100th running of the 500 in 2016. So I would not be surprised if we knock on the door of that for a reserve seat. The question is, where will we end up on the GA tickets?
All right, like how quickly are we talking to? We talking relatively quickly?
Actually, my boss, who's my direct boss, would be Mark Miles, who runs Penske Entertainment. But our boss for all of us is Roger Penske. Roger was in today, and he asked that exact question. He did.
Great minds.
Yeah, he's. Although he asks that question every day, right?
Sure
he's
does,
pretty.
Yeah.
He's pretty good at keeping up with it.
I just did fly in on a jet, so I came in. Yeah.
It's interesting. So our 500-hour renewal period, which happens every year for folks to renew tickets, was the best it's ever been. And then we thought, okay, we're getting people to the point where they know they need to renew their tickets, which means we'll probably sell less tickets from that 500-hour point to race day. And actually, almost every day since then, we have sold more tickets year over year than we sold last year. So the momentum is really strong. It's going quicker than ever. I think sometime early May hopefully we'll get to a point where we can say we don't have any reserve seats left. But it's got a little work to do to get there.
Speaking of early May, how about the road course race?
So the road course race is up again. Honestly, that's what IndyCar does in 10 of their races. 7 of their races are on ovals. 6 of them are on road courses, and 4 on street circuits. So for a lot of the folks that know IndyCar racing, they know the Indy 500 from TV, but in person they just know the road course or the street course. It's going well. It's a great way to kick things off and get things started and give people an opportunity to see what IndyCar does when it's not here in Indianapolis.
It is Doug Boles in studio. The Miller Lite Carb Day features George Thorogood and the Destroyers and Jen Blossoms. Go ahead.
So I was going to say the other thing we're going to do too is so one of the things we've done in the past, and actually the Kings and Rick Springfield and the gang created a problem for us a few years ago. They did their sound check, and literally the Kings of Chaos did their entire set because they bring in artists from different bands, and they'd never really practiced together. So they played a whole set, which meant we couldn't really open the gates to the concert venue until 3 o'clock. Which, for a lot of people, that they stay for the pit stop competition, and others are like, you know what, I saw practice, and I'm just going to go over to the music now. So you have a lot of people standing out there. So we're going to actually open the venue up a little bit earlier this year. We're going to have Kid Quill do some DJ music so we can get people excited and get things going as we lead in that.
I love DJ stuff.
So adding that in, I think that'll help get things kicked off and get the venue opened a little bit earlier, and we'll see how that goes. But hopefully they can all get their sound checks done early.
My guy BT Dude just said no mention of Kid Quill. Come on,
there you
man.
Go. There you go.
That
BT,
was me.
You got
that
it.
Yeah. So Kid Quill, the DJ.
Yeah, local guy, and we're excited to get Kid Quill going. And
I don't have a background of his. What's his background here locally?
He's an EDM artist, a sort of a. It's not our genre. It's a lot younger than we are, but I
do a little EDM. I don't mind it.
So he's gonna play a little music to get things going and get the venues set up and going. We'll get it open in, about an hour earlier so folks can get in there and enjoy. The one thing I know I saw a little bit on social today, or I didn't see, but my team told me that a little bit of social pushback on. So our ticket prices are $45.
Yes.
In renewal period, they were $25, so people could have gotten a ticket for Carb Day for $25. It'll be $50 on event day, so you want to get it early. But we're still 15 and under free. We don't have the ticket fees that a lot of folks get when you get a concert, so that's important. And you can bring your own booze, man. I mean, you could buy it from us. I'd love for you to. But you can pack your own Miller Lite, Coors Light in your coolers and bring it on your own. And you don't have to buy it from me.
All right, you sit tight. We come back final time. I want to ask you about the Eclipse because you guys are doing something special about that.
I can't wait for that one.
Make sure we'll mention that coming up. Doug Boles in studio. Quick break. We'll come back. Chesney tickets as well before we're out of here at 6 o'clock. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Hi, this is ESPN's Mike Greenberg and
With JMV.
We're putting the band back together.
Forget it. No way. We're on a mission from God.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right. Go ahead and swing at those Chesney tickets right now. Ruoff Home Mortgage Music Center. Shout out to Live Nation for it. The tickets, thank you very much. Number 9 at 239-1070. You're going to go see Chesney. And you're probably going to see a lot of chicks out there at Chesney. That's what I've heard. 239-1070. Greg Rakestraw a little bit earlier. Brad Spielberger of Pro Football Focus. Matt Painter was awesome podcast with the Boilermaker head coach at 1075thefan.com. Tomorrow's show, Ian Rappaport. I got to get Dusty May on here. We'll see what Dusty's doing coming up tomorrow. First round matchup with FAU and Northwestern. And as I mentioned yesterday, Dusty May played for Brooks Barnheiser's dad, Brooks Barnheiser, a junior on Northwestern's team. And, of course, Mark Barnheiser, who's at Lafayette Jeff now, coached Dusty at my high school, Eastern Green. How about that in a first-round matchup? Get Dusty May on here as well. Doug Boles back in studio, the Speedway president. I've got Big Glenn.
I actually responded to him on Twitter. Yeah,
well
I responded directly
right
to
here,
him.
Big
Yeah.
Glenn.
But, yes, parking is pretty close to being sold out if it isn't already sold out. So I suggested he just call the ticket office, or if he wants to DM me at jdouglas.4, I'm happy to hook him up with somebody.
All right, question about the Eclipse thing. This is a big deal around here. I mean, a big damn deal.
It's crazy how
What
big
you
it
guys
is.
doing out at the Speedway?
So, the last Eclipse that came close to us was in 2017, and I told our team, we need to do this when it comes back through here. And on April 8th in 2018, we actually announced that we were going to host an Eclipse viewing event and had no idea what we were going to do. And our friends at Purdue have stepped up with us, and Purdue and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway promoting it. We're one of 4 NASA official sites to watch it. So we're going to have astronauts. We're going to have STEM programming that Purdue's going to do, which will be great. It will have a whole bunch of NASA displays taking place, NASA TV all day long. Some of our race car drivers, TK's, Tony Kanon's going to come out and camp with his family. He'll be around hanging out with the fans. Lynn St. James just called me, said she's coming in town because she wants to be there for that. Ed Carpenter's going to do a demonstration run with the Indy cars. The cool thing about it, I think we'll have between 30 and 40,000 people there, 75% of whom have never been to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
And they're out there.
And it's a great way for us to showcase the Speedway. And that's why we asked Ed if he'd be willing to run his car. And then we had to talk to IndyCar to make sure we could work through the engine rules to make sure that worked. And that's so we're going to get that to happen. So 3 minutes and 42 seconds of totality. You get your free greatest spectacle glasses when you come through. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see it.
Did you see these? We got some.
Oh no, I'm going to send you some greatest spectacle glasses down here. It's going to be a good time. It'll be a great way. I'm just encouraging people, bring your car. Tailgate from your car, watch it from there. They're talking about 1 million people coming to Central Indiana to view this. Traffic is going to be terrible everywhere. So the nice thing about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is you can just hang out in the infield, hang around your car, sit in the grandstands. We've got areas for, if you're into telescoping, we've got areas specific for folks with telescopes so they can watch it. And it's gonna be a lot of fun. I can't wait to do it.
That is so great right there. And by the way, too, that's on National Championship Monday, right?
It is. So
Purdue will be playing right after that.
Our Purdue president was on a call with me, and I said to him, I said, I'm hoping you'll be here, and then I hope you figured out a way to get yourself on some private plane and get yourself to Phoenix for the championship. It should be really fun to have that happen here at the Speedway.
I appreciate you. I do want to talk to Thorogood. Okay, and if you want to do some Jim Blossom stuff, I'll do that too.
Great. Thorogood would be an interesting conversation. Just 50 years of playing, and I know that people are like, 50 years, why do you got a guy that's played 50 years? Because he's got a bunch of hits. It's going to be a lot of fun, and he would definitely be a fun one. I don't know the last time he played the market. I saw him at the Vogue in the early 90s, and it was one of the coolest shows just because he's so energetic and so into hanging out with the fans and just talking to the fans and making it feel pretty personal. So hopefully that'll be the same vibe that we get on Miller Lite Carb Day.
It is Miller Lite Carb Day. George Thorogood and the Destroyers, the Gin Blossoms, and DJ Quill as well. Doug Boles in studio. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for having a beer with me.
Doug Boles, awesome as always. Greg Rakestraw, Brad Spielberger, and the head coach of the Boilermakers podcast, 1075thefan.com. Matt Painter. Rappaport, if he shows up tomorrow, is going to be here as well. Get Dusty May on this program tomorrow on a Wednesday at 3. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Have a great night.